Ahead on American Sunrise Early Edition, California Governor Gavin Newsom can't stop doubling and tripling down on his fight for illegal aliens. Now, he's even bashing Vice President Vance and his young family while they visit Disneyland. Is there anything Newsom won't do to protect this cheap illegal labor scam for him and his shady donors? Is Team Trump still warring over the Epstein case mess? Or is there more infighting to go? FBI Director Kash Patel, for one, wants everyone to stop speculating. Hey, I thought the tariffs were going to crash the economy and blow up the deficit. Nope. Wait until you hear what the final financial numbers for June look like. The probe into that terrible Air India jet crash last month has a damning preliminary conclusion, but it does seem to leave one key American company off the hook. And what did President Trump do on the one-year anniversary of the assassination attempt against him? He went right out in front of the public again, this time acting as a major host for a major World Cup soccer championship and proving that America welcomes legal foreigners all the time. American Sunrise Early Edition begins now.
Welcome to American Sunrise Early Edition. The show where faith, freedom, and the values that built this nation take center stage.
Your good deeds and bad deeds. That's how we're going to judge you.
Join host Jake Novak as he breaks down the stories that matter.
We will be letting the public know regularly what we have found.
American Sunrise Early Edition with your host, Jake Novak, starts now.
It's a Monday here. Welcome to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. Thank you so much for joining us. I am here with you all the way through 10 a.m. today, so get yourself ready. Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be fun because I'm also going to be joining the American Sunrise crew starting at 8. But first, we have American Sunrise Early Edition. We do things a little bit differently here. Joining me now to help me do all that this morning is Veronica Kemeny. She is the host of Veronica Live. She's also an Air Force veteran, so do not mess with her. Hey, Veronica, I'd like your thoughts on how President Trump marked that one-year anniversary of the assassination attempt in Butler. Did he stay at home in his basement? Did he go to some kind of?
Oh my gosh, no.
Did he stay quietly? No, he went to this event with 86,000 people. I mean, he went more out in front and center than he even did at some of his rallies at this event, the FIFA championship event in New Jersey. A state which isn't exactly 100% pro-Trump. Actually, we might flip that state. The Republicans might in November for governor. So, keep your fingers crossed for those of you who want to see that happen. But Veronica, this is not a withering wallflower, is it?
No, Trump has always been our Energizer bunny for years. Jake, you know that. And, we marked the one-year anniversary yesterday, and he's out in front. Everybody was hooting and hollering. USA, Melania Trump with their Christian Dior glasses look spectacular, and I can't believe it's been a year. And, that a year ago when that assassination happened, I had a lot of friends that were on the fence when it came to voting for Trump, and that assassination attempt actually converted them to Trumpers. So I'm so proud that he has not stopped and he continues to fight for America. And he loves sports, Jake. He loves sports.
He does. And I think, one of the things I made a point yesterday, because we did some live coverage of this event right when we weren't allowed to show the soccer match. God forbid we infringe on those sports rights and copyrights and things like that. But we were able to go live with Brian Glenn right in the middle of the stadium as the match ended. And we showed the trophy ceremony and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I wanted to make a point about was, in the United States, we don't have a prime minister and a president or a king or something who does the ribbon cuttings, does the head of state stuff, showing up to these big events. So our president has to do them if the president so chooses. And President Trump did that. I mean, soccer isn't the craziest thing. I'm sure that soccer isn't the number one sport choice of most of the Trump voters out there. But this is a huge event for the United States. We have the real World Cup, the regular World Cup tournament coming here next year, and the president is trying to promote American business, American hospitality, all the things that will help our economy next year. We also have the Olympics coming up in 3 years. This is his job, and the idea that this country isn't welcoming, and this is our next topic, Veronica, the idea that this country is not welcoming to legal foreigners and legal tourists is just ludicrous. But I still think the number one issue in America is illegal immigration, and the nastiness in California and the foolhardiness in LA specifically seem to know no bounds, Veronica. In addition to Governor Gavin Newsom attacking Vice President Vance and his young children online yesterday as they visited Disneyland, Newsom made a comment about how Disneyland couldn't stay open without illegal aliens, which I don't see how that's necessarily true. But even if it were true, that's not Vice President Vance's fault. That's Disneyland's fault. But anyway, on top of that now, Veronica, you have Mayor Karen Bass of LA pledging to deliver cash payments to illegal aliens because, they might be afraid to go out now because they might get nabbed by ICE. So I guess she's going to do curbside service and give these people cash. Is there no end, Veronica, to the insanity of these politicians? This makes no sense.
She's like the number one cheerleader for Angelians, she calls them. And these are illegal aliens. I mean, California is a mess, and especially LA has about 58,000 homeless to boot. So they're not doing well. And of course, Gavin Newsom, when we had the pot bust last week, he was in California, or not California, excuse me, South Carolina, running for president because he's the candidate that will never go away and wants to be president. He's not qualified. Mr. Hairgel, he needs to concentrate on his state, and it's been a mess from fires to now this, arresting 300 illegals at this legal pot farm. And I learned a lot about pot, Jake. There's 38% of people buy legal pot in California, but the rest are buying it from like Chinese cartels and Mexican cartels selling it in California. And they've got 20% potheads out in California. So that state is a complete cluster. And Newsom, he just wants to be president, thinks he's somebody, but his state's falling apart. And of course, on X, he put, he's still mad that Trump's got 5,000 National Guard out there. And so he's trolling Vance and Trump to get rid of the Guard. But why are they out there? Here we had this farm bust, and people knew that they were coming. They arrested the 300 folks. There was children, 10 underage children that were on site. I mean, this is an embarrassment to California. And, I say this all the time. I've said it for years. I want legal immigrants that are vetted, and then they could come work with worker visas. That's how I roll. And California could lead the way if Newsom, had some manhood.
Yeah, well, I think he's also getting paid off, Veronica. That's really the only explanation. The polls all show tremendous support for deporting all illegal aliens. Even the New York Times poll showed a more than 10 percentage point lead in a poll for all Americans saying they completely want every illegal deported. And on top of that, for them to be working children in pot farms. And one thing you didn't mention, Veronica, these pot farms have been found to be using an overwhelming amount of pesticides, more than they're legally allowed to. So it's actually not legal pot for those who think it is. And that's the LA Times that reported that, not some right-wing newspaper. All right, let's talk about another controversy, Veronica. Count me among the many Americans who really are not satisfied with what still looks like some kind of cover-up, or at least a very badly handled situation with this Jeffrey Epstein case. But this weekend was full of rumors about big-time defections in the administration. First, they said Kash Patel, the FBI director, was going to leave. They're still saying that Dan Bongino, one of his top aides at the FBI, is going to leave. Look, like I said, I'm not satisfied with where this controversy is shaking out. But are you willing to give the Trump administration a little bit more slack or latitude before people start saying, hey, the whole thing is falling apart? I am. I would like to hear more about this Epstein case, but with the caveat that I know that we're probably not going to get real punishment on any of the people responsible, not because of President Trump or any president before him, but just because these people can easily leave the jurisdiction, fly off to another crazy island somewhere.
Well, there's definitely something going on. And, I'm MAGA, and I talked to a bunch of my MAGA influencers this weekend, and they are all MAGA. We are in this. This is a marriage. I worked for the Trump campaign in 2015 for more than a year to get him elected. And I'm still going to be MAGA. I don't care if Elon Musk starts an America's party. I'm not jumping ship. Everything's not going to be perfect in this administration. But and so far, it's gone pretty well. I am concerned because all weekend long, we heard that Bongino potentially was going to want to resign. Kash Kash Patel came out and said that he's sticking with Trump. And then, of course, Trump came out and said that Bondi's doing a great job. I think she overshot with all of her media appearances. And that was one of the things. Americans want to close borders, and then we want to know what's happened, who's on the Epstein list. And, you know, when you're talking 1,000 children that were hurt and raped and all these terrible things that happened to them, there's got to be some accountability. So you got to throw us a bone, Jake.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that there might be something coming, but you're right. I mean, look, this doesn't, you know, there are two things can be true at the same time. There can be a misstep by people in this administration, and you can still support the administration overall because you're able to look at it because you understand math, and you know that when things work out, or the things that you like happening 9 times out of 10, the 10th thing is not something worth bolting over. But Veronica, there are some people who definitely are leaving the administration. That would be the 1,300 workers at the State Department who got laid off on Friday.
My
not
goodness.
Really. And I don't mean to laugh. I don't mean to laugh at people losing their jobs. But you know what, there's a couple points to make here. First of all, the State Department's staff size since the beginning of the Obama administration has ballooned by tens of thousands. So this is really just a drop in the bucket. That's one thing for people who say, oh, the State Department won't be able to function anymore. And second of all, in the private sector, just the last month alone, we had tens of thousands of layoffs at major companies, 9,000 at Microsoft alone. Welcome to the world the rest of us live in, federal workers. You don't deserve a lower bar than the rest of us. But they seem to demand it, don't they, Veronica?
They do. You know, I was in the military for 20 years, and I often found that federal workers, it was a welfare system, because when they were bad, you couldn't fire them. Of course, there's great workers. And, you know, Secretary Rubio said this is a cost-saving initiative. All of the workers that are being let go are in America. So we've got 1,100 civil service workers and about 250 foreign service workers. And, you know, the foreign service officers are going to get 120 days of pay, and the federal service workers are going to get 60 days of pay. So it's not like they're kicked to the curb with no you know, money. They're getting some money. And what did President Trump promised? That we were going to clean up and make things leaner. And that wasn't just the Department of Defense. That's the Department of State as well, so that they're more efficient. So I'm okay with this, Jake. This is fine. You know, of course, I never want anybody to lose their jobs, but, you know, they're going to have some money on the way out. And, of course, if they're retirement age, they'll let them retire. So, you know, let's make it a better place. And we've learned, too, that this agency wasn't always like pro-America in some of their initiatives. So this is good. We got a clean house. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the infiltration in the State Department among anti-American groups is pretty high. Veronica Kemeny, thanks so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your week. And thank you so much for waking up crazy early for this show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jake. Bye.
All right, coming up, Russia's Vladimir Putin has some harsh realities he wants Iran's leaders to accept. He's also going to have to swallow some harsh realities himself, by the way. I'll have the latest on that. And the publisher of the Washington Post is really trying to save that newspaper. It would be nice if the people working there did too. They don't seem to want to. That story and more when American Sunrise Early Edition comes right back. The flag is moving. Repeat, the flag is moving. I think it's the first time in this program we've shown you this live shot from the White House with the new flagpoles. And there's been enough of a breeze in D.C. to actually get that flag to move. Thank goodness for the people living there. It maybe won't be so terribly hot and humid there today. Some kind of a breeze. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to the folks on Getter and Rumble who are already up and commenting this morning. A lot of Russia news to tell you about this morning. First, I want to tell you a little bit, I'm ad-libbing this just a little bit of breaking news. We're getting reports that President Trump will announce today that he is going to send Patriot missile batteries to Ukraine to protect that nation from more missile attacks from Russia. That's a very big development and certainly indicative of President Trump's frustration with Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, who seems to be doing absolutely nothing, in fact, doing less than nothing to try to stop that war like President Trump wants. So clearly he's getting frustrated, and we'll get more details on that in a second. But here's another Russia story. Russia certainly likes to interfere in the Middle East. And it's the perfect scenario for them because they can go into the Middle East, cause chaos, and then get out just when it feels like it. It's been doing this for hundreds of years. Well, it feels like President Putin in Russia is doing that again because he's telling Iran, that country that Russia's been supporting and having a real bromance with the last few years, he is reportedly telling Iran that they should accept a zero enriched uranium demand from the United States. Now, Iran is furious about this because, they want their nuclear weapons, and they're trying to push back on that report. But from what I've seen in the regular news media over there and from my own sources, this is true. Russia basically wants to tell Iran to go away for a while. That's what you get when you make deals with Russia, folks, especially in the Middle East. They come in to cause chaos, and when they get their chaos jollies filled, they move out. Iran's learning that the hard way. All right, spoiler alert. The attempts by top management at the Washington Post to make that paper's content more balanced and sane, they're not working. The publisher, Will Lewis is his name. He is now just getting as blunt as possible with the reporters and associate editors who just don't get it. He just sent them a letter saying, hey, your readership has been cut in half just in the last couple of years. People don't like this paper. Look, folks, the Washington Post, believe it or not, especially during the Obama years, was much more fair and much more broad-based in its coverage. It certainly was still liberal-leaning, don't get me wrong. But when Obama was president and I was running television news shows, I looked at the Washington Post a lot more than other newspapers because I knew I would get some balance there. When President Trump was elected and Jeff Bezos bought that paper, it went crazy anti-Trump, even more than any other paper. And now they are paying the price. It is over the top. And any attempt to make it fair now by Bezos' new guy, Will Lewis, is being pushed back upon by the crazed reporters and associate editors who are at that paper, who are angry about the paper trying to make some good on some things like retractions, telling people the truth about the Russiagate hoax. They're not buying it. People are really, really angry. This paper's own reporters, unless they replace them all tomorrow, are going to bring this newspaper down. And it's a shame because it could be a good newspaper. It is in the nation's capital. If they have their ears open to all the stories and they're a little bit more fair, it can be a great newspaper. I used to love it also because it used to have the most comics of any newspaper in America. When I was a kid, I used to love to pick it up. But I'd be sorry to see it go, but I guess they deserve it. If their own reporters don't want to save it, what can I do to help it? All right, if you are stressed out about back taxes, maybe you missed the April deadline or your books are a mess, do not wait. The IRS is cracking down. Penalties add up fast. 5% per month, up to 25% just for not filing. But there is help. Tax Network USA can take the burden off your shoulders and stop the spiral before it gets worse. They have helped thousands of Americans, whether you're an employee, a small business owner, or haven't filed in years. Messy books, no problem. They've seen it all, and they know exactly how to clean it up. With direct access to powerful IRS programs and expert negotiators on your side, Tax Network USA knows how to win. You'll get a free consultation, and if you qualify, they may even be able to reduce or eliminate what you owe. More importantly, they'll help protect you from wage garnishments or bank levies. So don't wait for the next IRS letter. Call 800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV to talk to a real expert at Tax Network USA. Take the pressure off. Let Tax Network USA handle your tax issues. Coming up, they told us the tariffs would bankrupt America and have us all out on the streets killing each other for spare cans of potted meat. Okay, I'm overstating it a little bit, but they did try to scare us. Well, those doomsayers, will they be embarrassed when they check out how the U.S. Treasury made out last month? Well, I'll tell you how it did. American Sunrise Early Edition is coming right back. It's a live shot of the Capitol Dome. Hey, they're going to be busy this week. They're voting on codifying, making it permanent, the Doge cuts. That's going to be a big vote this week. So Washington actually doing stuff in July. That's not very common. And there you see, we showed you the White House a few minutes ago. Now that's the Capitol Dome. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. Now let's look at where the markets are going to open in New York, or on your day trading desk, wherever you are in the world. You don't need to be in New York anymore. And as you can see, the futures are lower. They were much lower about 12 hours ago, 300 points down on the Dow. Now we're only down 122 points in the Dow. That's because traders understand that when President Trump puts new tariffs in and announces them like he did, it isn't the end of the world anymore. They didn't realize that 2 months ago, but now they get it. You're also seeing crude oil up almost $1. We're getting back towards that $70 a barrel mark again. And that has a lot to do with what I talked about just a few minutes ago. President Trump expected to announce that the United States will send Patriot missile batteries to Ukraine. And that makes people believe there'll be some disruption in Russian oil deliveries all over the world. So that's putting that up a little bit. Not, again, below $70 a barrel, which is, by the way, really, really historically low, especially when you price in inflation. Now let's take a look at Bitcoin, because we have a new all-time record. Just as I expected, we are at the 121,000 level and change. This is what I told you on Friday and Thursday. I expected it to get to 125 in the coming days. There we are. We're almost there, and we certainly are at an all-time high. I'm going to get back to tariffs for a second. Just when the experts told us that Trump's tariffs would boost inflation, kill the economy, and definitely balloon the deficit, that was something they really promised us. Well, let's just say those experts are wrong on all counts. They're 0 for 3. We just learned that in addition to inflation cooling more than expected the last few months, that's been happening. The economy is looking good in the April through June quarter. We're going to get our first reading on that pretty soon. They're expecting big growth for that quarter. But we also learned that the June budget for the United States showed a budget surplus. The Treasury took in $27 billion in the black. Now, that's the second budget surplus in just the last few months. We had a big one in April when the tariffs first went into place. And of course, a big reason for those added revenues is the money that the government's taking in from tariffs. Now, look, folks, it may not continue this way. I understand the misgivings that a number of trade experts have about the tariffs over the long term, but that's just it. We may not see long-term tariffs. It's clear that these tariffs are getting our foreign trade partners to come to the table with more favorable terms than they would have without them. And in the meantime, we're taking in some money, period. By the way, June is usually not a very good month for government revenues. It's a couple of months after taxes are collected. It's usually not a good one. We haven't had a June in the black, a positive month of June, since 2017, so 8 years. This is working, at least for now. Let's see what happens. I'd love to see some trade deals made so we don't need to keep the tariffs in place forever. But as long as they're in place and we're making money and the economy's strong, why the heck not? All right, now to the Air India crash probe findings and why this is a business story for us. Listen, obviously, the lives that were lost in that crash are the most important thing. But when that crash happened, you might remember it was a Boeing 787 Dreamliner. And people were worried that Boeing had another mechanical problem to deal with, like they did with the 737 MAX jets that had a system that was just too complicated for a lot of pilots who weren't properly trained. Well, this is a little bit more scary for the world, but certainly good news for Boeing. It's looking more and more now from the preliminary report we got over the weekend that the pilot on the Air India plane either deliberately or incredibly accidentally shut off the fuel to the jet's engines just after takeoff. This is looking more and more like it was deliberate. This could be something like the Egypt air crash you might remember from almost 30 years ago when a pilot was apparently committing suicide with a jet full of passengers and it crashed into the Atlantic Ocean. This is not definitive. We don't know this for sure, but we do know that those fuel supply switches were switched down. And Boeing has shown over the weekend that that isn't something that happens on its own. That either has to be somebody brushing against it by accident, which would be the most incredibly insane, incompetent thing I've ever heard of, or someone did it on purpose. So Boeing shares, the people with skin in the game, remember I always tell you, the people with money in a story are the ones that you want to watch to see what they say. They bid Boeing shares up over the weekend in aftermarket trading, up 2%. That's a lot for Boeing in one day. They believe this is good news for Boeing because it looks like it's a pilot situation and not a mechanical thing. Always have to look at the markets if you can to find out what the truth of a story is. So that is what happened over the weekend. And now, for another, speaking of airlines, another reminder of my Delta decoy role. I told you the other day, I am naming companies who say that the tariffs are going to make them completely not profitable. They don't know what to say about how things are going, that they were using the tariffs to lower the bar, to lower the expectations for their earnings reports, so that when they came out with their quarterly reports, they could say, wow, we did much better than expected. Go us, invest in our stock. Now, Delta got away with this last week. That's exactly what they did when the tariffs came out. And last week when they announced better than expected profits and revenues, their shares went up 12% in one day. That's a tremendous amount for any stock, but especially an established airline like Delta. So I'm calling it the Delta decoy. And I'm reminding you of this now because we are starting a very big earnings week this week. Tomorrow, all the big banks, JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, they all played that tariff. We don't know how we're going to make money anymore game a couple of months ago. I'm predicting here now, they're all going to beat expectations. And let's see if investors pour huge money into those stocks tomorrow. I'm giving you a little bit of a preview on that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. It is Moving America by Artillery, sponsored by Artillery Tea Company, artilleryteaco.com. Use promo code RAV for 10% off your first order. Artillery tea is all natural, whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. Artilleryteaco.com, promo code RAV for 10% off your first order. A few weeks ago, I told you here on American Sunrise Early Edition that Nissan, in our Moving America segment, that Nissan may use some of its basically almost shut down factories in places like Mississippi to help Honda, because Honda wanted to get around the tariffs and wants to build more of their cars, and in this case, trucks, in the United States. So Nissan said, hey, We've got some factories, especially the one in Canton, Mississippi, that's not too busy right now. How can we work this out? Now we know more details of this possible deal. It's not 100% finalized yet, but we do know that Honda, if they do make this deal, will have Nissan help them build their Ridgeline pickup trucks in that Canton, Mississippi factory. So this is a case where not only will tariffs help get more jobs for Americans working in a truck that was not made in the United States until now, if this deal goes through, but also it is getting a chance for Nissan, a little bit of a lifeline. If they can make it, Honda's not going to ask Nissan to do this for free. Nissan's going to provide this factory and some of its workers and more workers to Honda for a nice fee. This might keep Nissan alive. So while Nissan and Honda aren't completely merging, the tariffs are bringing them together. And I told you, folks, tariffs are all about love. Honda and Nissan are going to get together, at least in a little way. All right. Elon Musk's Grok, that Grok XAI chat program, had a pretty bad week last week, to say the least, including somebody found some way to game that system and make it post some pro-Hitler stuff. I kid you not. It's pretty ugly stuff. But despite that, the folks at Tesla feel good about getting that bug out of the system enough to put XAI Grok into Tesla cars this week. It will now be available in your software. So now you can ask Grok if you should either push your backseat driver out the window while the car is moving or at a red light. Okay, I'm only kidding. But having an AI chatbot, I guess, will help during driving, maybe if you get lonely, especially. When I say the words loan refinance, you probably think only about mortgages or maybe a big corporation that has like a multi-billion-dollar loan and they want to refinance it. Well, you may not know there's actually a big market for refinancing auto loans. You can refinance your auto loan, by the way, if you want to, if you're eligible. And Chase Bank is getting back into that business. For years, they got out of it. But who can blame them? They just decided to get back into the business. And why? Because of another story we talked about here last week on Moving America. The number of Americans with 10-year-long car loans, I call that a car mortgage, is growing. So are the number of Americans with payments of at least $1,000 a month for their car loans. So refinancing now is becoming something almost as possible for car loans as it is with home mortgages, and Chase Bank, which is a big player, is getting back into it. I don't love this trend, folks. If you can't afford to buy your car and with anything less than 10 or 7 years to pay it off, it's probably not a great buy for you. But hey, I'm not your grandmother. I'm not scolding you, but it makes me a little bit nervous. But hey, maybe you can refinance and save some money. Okay, enough with the tariffs. Enough with software and all that other stuff. Let's see some cars burning rubber. Let's look at some cool stuff. Here is some video we're seeing now for the first time of a series of drag races pitting the new Corvette ZR1 against the Lamborghini Revoletto in Orlando last week. The Corvette didn't win every one of these races, but it won a number of them. And thus it matches up very favorably with a much more expensive Lamborghini. That Lamborghini goes for well over $600,000. The new Corvette's going to be between $200,000, I think, and $250,000, so it's a bargain. By the way, there are going to be more drag races in the coming days, pitting that Corvette against the Porsche 911 Turbo, a Tesla Model S Plaid, and a McLaren 720S. So keep it up, Corvette. Not doing a bad job there at all. Coming up, the Man of the People hoax has been blown up several times already when it comes to New York mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani. But now we know the reality is even worse. I'll explain. And the Air India crash that I told you about could have been a total disaster for Boeing, but it's still looking like yet another example of another problem in all of aviation. Pilot mental health care. What are we doing about that? We'll talk about that when American Sunrise Early Edition comes right back. It's Monday, July 14th. Here are this morning's top stories. California Governor Gavin Newsom can't stop doubling and tripling down on his fight for illegal aliens. Now he's even bashing Vice President Vance and his young family while they visit Disneyland. Is there anything Newsom won't do to protect this cheap illegal labor scam for him and his shady donors? Hey, I thought the tariffs were going to crash the economy and blow up the deficit. Nope. Wait until you hear what the final financial numbers for June look like. Not so bad. The probe into that terrible Air India jet crash last month has a damning preliminary conclusion, but it does seem to leave one key American company off the hook, but not passengers. And what did President Trump do on the one-year anniversary of the assassination attempt against him? He went right out in front of the public again, in Jersey no less, this time acting as a host for a major World Cup soccer championship and proving that America does welcome legal foreigners all the time. American Sunrise Early Edition continues now. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. It is Monday, but we're going to get through it together. I'm Jake Novak. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much to those of you in the Getter and the Rumble chats. You are off and running on Monday. You are not having a slow Monday morning on those platforms. Checking out all of your comments there. Helping me get through this Monday situation is pilot and CEO of Hopscotch Air, Andrew Schmertz. And Andrew, I got to say this. This preliminary report about the Air India crash seems to me a lot like that Egypt Air crash that I think we both covered back when we were working in local news in New York, when you had that Egypt Air pilot who basically committed suicide and put that jet into the Atlantic Ocean. It's looking like this, or at the very least, Andrew, a very incompetent pilot who somehow switched down the fuel gauge buttons and cut off fuel to the engine. That's what the preliminary report looks like. Listen, you're the pilot. What does it look like to you?
First, I want to start by saying this is a reason why we should never listen to these so-called YouTube investigators who look at some grainy video of the flight and make conclusions about what happened, because those comments are almost always wrong. Now, this is just a preliminary report that's out by the Indian investigators that say these fuel switches, which are located below the throttle in the Dreamliner, were switched off prior to the plane crashing, and confusion in the cockpit about what happened. It does not appear that this could be done accidentally. However, Boeing and the FAA did issue an advisory a number of years ago that aircraft operators should check these fuel cutoff switches. So this leads to questions about what the pilots did, why they did this, and how they did this. And obviously it is leading to us going into a dark space that maybe possibly this was pilot suicide, though we should not throw the pilots and the crew under the bus just yet. The investigation is complicated, will take a long time to look at, but that is leading some people to that conclusion, which raises the issue of mental illness. And the FAA has been dealing with this issue for a number of decades, but the last few years, the FAA has started to make some progress. I think it's slow progress in addressing mental illness.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Andrew, I appreciate your caution. You're absolutely right to remind me and everyone else. And again, I'm trying to be as cautious as possible, but I also like to get to the bottom of things. And I repeat my disclaimer that this is what it looks like for now. Could change. And I'm certainly not the aviation expert. But what I do know, and what is not what is not really guesswork, is the idea that we do probably need some better mental health care screening for pilots. I don't know what the regular procedures are in any given country. I assume we know that there's fitness tests for our pilots here in the United States, and I'm sure that most countries do something along those lines. But I would guess that there maybe need to be a little bit more mental health screening as well. Probably not a bad idea to add it, even though still things could slip through the cracks. Any thoughts, Andrew, on maybe what you would like to see, or what's already in place for some of these pilots? Do they have like a mental health care screening regularly? Do you know about that?
Yeah, so in the United States, the FAA has been moving to make changes. Mental illness is not like a typical disease where it's either a 1 or a 0. So you have to kind of evaluate further. In the past, commercial pilots who sought psychiatric help, went to see a psychiatrist, maybe got some medication, were grounded. So that led people to either A, not seek help, which is not good, or lie about it to the government, which is also not good. The FAA has made changes, slow changes in this process, that if you do need help and seek help, maybe use some antidepressants, they will clear you to continue flying after a number of protocols. However, that message has been slow to get out to a pilot community that has typically been very reticent of any interaction with the government because they fear for their livelihood. So the FAA has made progress in this. I don't think the progress has been significant enough because mental health issues have been a problem for years. They have, as we've seen, brought down a number of planes. Not many, it's very rare, but over the last decade, I think we still need to make more progress in this. But I think the FAA's flight surgeon, federal flight surgeon, a recent appointee over the past, I think, 5 or 6 years she's been in the job, has done a number of good things in this area, but more needs to be done.
Again,
and airlines, of course, have their own standards.
Yeah, really heartbreaking for people if this is what turned out. Andrew, let's talk about something on the brighter side. Delta Airlines, now I called it the Delta decoy. I think they were deliberately under-promising and over-delivering when they were talking about the tariffs and saying, oh, everything's going to go terrible. And then, of course, they had these great results last week. I'm not talking about the Wall Street stuff now. Let's talk about this from a point of view of the health of the aviation industry. Does Delta's report make you feel confident about airline demand, even through these still somewhat uncertain times?
It makes me feel confident about Delta. Delta is one of the best run airlines in the United States. They've done a terrific job of managing the softness in travel demand. We've seen it at Hopscotch, by the way. There is a softness, but that softness is starting to, resolve itself. I think as people are feeling more confident about the economy, people were spooked in the spring. They didn't travel. They didn't travel there for leisure. And the airlines make most of their money from leisure travel. But I think that is starting to turn around. What Delta has certainly reported is significant and good news for the airline industry. But it goes back to my basic point. You could either be upmarket in the business or down market in the business. You could either be Delta or you could be Frontier Airlines. When you're stuck in the muddy middle, that's where the problems occur, when people don't know what your product is.
All right. Andrew, the viewers may not be aware that before you took to the skies, you were down here on Earth on the gritty New York City streets as a reporter doing local news. You saw it all. So I got to ask you about the New York City situation. What's your take on this mayor's race? Zohran Mamdani, the communist Democrat nominee for mayor, the scramble to try to get Eric Adams enough money and support or find one candidate to everyone unite around to defeat Mamdani. Is this a shock to you? I mean, it's a different New York than the one that we covered together when we were doing local news, isn't it?
Yeah, New York politics never fails to surprise me. There is a huge enthusiasm gap. No one is enthusiastic or was enthusiastic about Andrew Cuomo. You did not see rallies and thousands of people show up. Eric Adams, probably less enthusiastic, though now there's some momentum getting behind Eric. And, you and I, when we worked back in New York One, I know I spoke to and interviewed Curtis Sliwa a number of times. He's a great interview. He's a lot of fun to talk to, but he really doesn't have a shot here. So the candidates do need to come together and figure out what to do about Mamdani. I've heard him called a progressive, and I don't like that because I have some progressive ideas. I think progressive ideas sometimes have a legitimate place, certainly in New York City, but he is far beyond the pale of any progressive policies. And he's radical, and he does not have the background to deliver any of these promises. He's promising everything, the whole world to everybody. He will fail. And that's outside of his non-political views, his anti-Israel views, his anti-police views. He has a lot of cleaning up to do. And I fear that the media is going to kind of accept that cleaning up and not really give him the hard look that he needs.
Yeah, I think you can also back me up on this statement. A lot of people have asked me, and they probably have asked you as well, how can a city that went through 9/11 elect a guy who says globalize the Intifada and seems friendly to Hamas? And I tell them, 9/11 was almost 24 years ago. I would venture to say that maybe 30 to 40% of the population of New York today, the voting population, wasn't even living here on September 11th, 2001. I wonder if you see it the same way.
I do. They weren't living here or they weren't born. at the time. It's hard to imagine. We're kind of old guys now. We remember that. And I think that we need to figure out a way to remind people or to educate people about the dangers of that rhetoric. You could accept progressive policies wherever they take you, give it a shot. But this individual in particular, I think, is a danger to the city. Unfortunately, we have failed candidates or flawed candidates all around him, not able to coalesce and come up with somebody who could possibly beat him.
Yeah, well, again, it's an interesting situation. I got to tell you, I'm looking at the chessboard, Andrew, and it just doesn't look like they're going to be able to beat this guy Mamdani. Not because he's so great, but just because these candidates running against him are not strong. And I don't, again, you can see why people wouldn't like them. I just don't see how, even if all of them drop out except for one, I still think it's going to be a heavy lift. Andrew Schmertz, thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe in the skies. Have a great rest of your week.
You too, Jake. Thank you.
Okay, coming up, President Trump marked the one-year anniversary of the attempted assassination against him by being even more out in front with the public than usual. David Brody and I will talk about the dual importance of that event yesterday when American Sunrise Early Edition continues.
Washington, D.C. What a shot. Oh, by the way, I'm not Jake Novak. I'm David Brody. I'm just a poor man's Jake Novak, and that's actually accurate. He should be with us in just a little bit. I don't know. Maybe he's gone AWOL. I don't know. We're looking into it as we speak. And one of the things, by the way, that he mentioned, this is what we were going to talk about. And he was going to talk about it with me. But why not? Just more airtime for me. I'll talk about it. How about President Trump yesterday at the FIFA World Cup there out in Jersey? And there he is. And Jake, I believe we have you back. You want to take it from here? Hello.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you so much, David. Sorry about that. A little bit of audio problems for me, not you. Look, I wanted to talk about the dual importance of this. Look, obviously him going out in front in public in front of 86,000 plus on the one-year anniversary of an assassination attempt at a rally shows he's not going to hide. He's not going to hide. He's not going to be just a shrinking flower. But there's another part of this, David, that I think people need to remember. The president of the United States acts as also the head of state. We don't have a king in this country. We don't have, it's not like we have a separate position. It's not like we have I think it's called the governor general or something like that in Canada. We don't have that. It has to be done by the president. He has to do the ribbon cuttings. He has to do things like that. And we are here a year before the major World Cup, the real World Cup tournament coming to the United States. We have the Olympics coming up in 3 years. This president has to show foreign investors, foreign tourists, foreign countries that as long as you do things legally, we welcome you in this country. There's this whole lie that I think the rest of the world's being told that we don't like foreigners and we want to close our... It's not true. As long as you're legal, and especially if you're here to buy a ticket and pay $12 for a beer, please join us. Please join us in America. And it's important for President Trump to show up at these kinds of things.
I mean, such an astute observation. I feel like a broken record with you, Jake. I'm always going such an astute observation. I mean, you say it all the time. It's true. I mean, you're absolutely right. And listen, let's remember, Trump knows visuals, and it's important. Visuals are important. So for him to be on stage, which, by the way, I have some few things to say about that, which is hilarious. But him being on stage, hilarious. Not me saying it is hilarious. But for him being on stage there in an international surrounding where he's taken all that criticism, we should not be lost. It should not be lost on us that the visuals matter here. And by the way, let me just say something about President Trump on stage like that. First of all, I mean, talk about chutzpah. I mean, this guy, right, a year later, and all of a sudden he's in an open air stadium, 80,000, whatever it is, people there. Let me guess, Jake, I haven't done a survey, but my guess is not everybody in that open air stadium was a big fan of President Trump, if you know what I'm saying, as it relates to international soccer audiences, okay? So that's a risk, and it's a big risk. And he didn't just do it in an arena, he did it in an open air stadium. Beyond all of that, to me, what's interesting also here is that Trump loves to be associated with winners. He is a winner himself. He saw the moment, too. And you know what? For him to be on stage with Chelsea there and kind of raising, and he didn't raise the trophy, but the point is he was part of that moment. It was kind of funny, actually. It was like President Trump, was the president of the club, and he was taking part in the victory celebration, which, of course, obviously, he didn't want to upstage anybody, even though the liberal media would love to say he did, but he didn't. The point is that he knows moments. And he understood that was not only a moment visually, but also a moment significantly, like you said, as it relates to the economic impact of what that visual would mean. Because everything ultimately is kind of like a 6 degrees of separation regarding Kevin Bacon, except this time Kevin Bacon is the actual bacon, the money.
Listen, the economic thing is important. Let's not forget, the United States did host the World Cup in 1994, and I have to tell you, there were a lot of empty stadiums for a lot of those matches. Not for the final at the Rose Bowl. That they sold out. Yes, there were a number of well-attended events, but there were a lot of empty stadiums. And President Trump doesn't want that. He wants to show the world that we have the fans, and more importantly, the fans from the foreign countries who are going to come and watch these matches will be welcome here. They're going to have a good time here, and we're going to fill up these stadiums this time. This wasn't even an event that I even knew existed. I didn't know FIFA had a World Cup for clubs, for actual professional teams. I think this is a new thing. But hey, we filled an 86,000-seat stadium, which I called the Trail of Tears because I'm a Jets season ticket holder. But hey, they filled it up, and it was a good moment. And look, President Trump in that suit and the red tie with all those guys in the soccer jerseys, it was a funny picture, I thought, for a second. But you know what? You're right. He didn't upstage them. He went to the back as soon as he got that one picture.
He did go to the back.
David Brody, I'm going to be joining you for the next 2 hours. Thanks for joining me on Early Edition. You got more of me coming up. Stay with me.
American Sunrise is a great way to start your morning. Join us Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We've got the news of the day and some compelling interviews that you don't want to miss. Here's what you missed from yesterday.
Just realized the anniversary of that assassination attempt is just 3 days away. Today is the 10th. That happened July 13th. Hard to believe that it's been a year ago. To me, it feels like it was almost yesterday. Those 6 Secret Service agents were suspended. We're hearing, guys, that the suspensions range from between 10 and about 42 days. The suspensions apparently were handed down months ago, but obviously the agents had an opportunity to appeal.
It isn't harsh enough. You have a hurting family. I heard the pleas of the wife of course, the gentleman the Patriot, who was shot and killed during that as well. It could have been our president. It could have been anyone in that audience. It could have been any one of us or our team who have all been to rallies. It could have been anyone in our audience, who most of them have been to rallies.
And I do believe, guys, that this is ultimately a problem between the leadership ranks and the agents in the field. We know this. There's been problems there. They're trying to correct it at the top. But you can add this point of the fact that there's been suspensions and not firings to a long list of questions that we're going to have. It's feeling like Epstein to a degree here, because we've got a lot of questions on that too. So like, what in the world's going on?
This single issue is the most heated and debated topic on social media right now in regards to President Trump and this administration. Now, this case closed in terms of Epstein comes just 2 weeks after the P. Diddy trial, another high-profile sex trafficking, sex extortion, prostitution, the horrible things that allegedly P. Diddy did. So you've got two very high-profile cases that are just swift away, nothing to see here, we're over it, it's gone. P. Diddy, for the most part, getting off on the most serious charges.
The reality for us, David, is that a lot of these folks that are in the cabinet are friends of ours, and we not only know them, but we believe them and we trust them. And I'm just very confused.
But I believe that while President Trump is making strides, the deep state is still very active and still influencing some of the behind the scenes and institutional.
But if there's no list, okay, but like you say, Gina, there's files. There's tons of files. So what you can't, the last thing you can do here is just say case closed, move on, nothing to see here. I mean, that from a strategy standpoint, that's just what you can't do that. Ahead on American Sunrise, Epstein files fallout. MAGA ticked. So will Attorney General Pam Bondi resign? Will President Trump doubling down on his support for Bondi? We have the latest. Plus, new damaging information this morning on the Secret Service and intel community. Why threat intelligence never made it through to those in Butler, PA on the ground the day Donald Trump was shot. The latest ahead. And America First hits Oklahoma schools. A new test for out-of-state teachers from liberal states is causing all sorts of controversy in the Sooner State. We have those stories sooner than later. Thank you very much. And a lot more as American Sunrise starts right now. Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
We have breaking news to share with you.
politics,
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
we've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Good morning. Happy Monday to everybody. I'm Dr. G. We are live with you from the Palm Beaches. Want to bring in David Brody. He's in Washington, D.C., and we have a little surprise today. Early Edition's Jake Novak is joining us. Terrance will join us a little later from our Denver newsroom this morning. Good morning, gentlemen. Good weekend had by all? All your teams win and everything that was supposed to happen?
Our teams, Jake. Our teams never win, Jake. We're Jet fans. No.
I'm sorry.
At least they're not.
I won in the cooking game. I baked a gluten-free bread for my girlfriend who's gluten-free, and it was like the best gluten-free bread in the history of the world, which is a very low bar to clear. But to me, that was better than a Super Bowl victory. So let's put it that way.
Better than a Super Bowl victory. Wow. All right, you guys. Well, a lot of news coming out. Trump, of course, is going to announce today that he's going to send Patriot missiles to Ukraine. We know he's been critical of Putin. This thing is not going down, I don't think, the way most of MAGA might have hoped. Congress is considering sanctions against Russia. David, what's going to be the fallout from all of this? I mean, MAGA is sort of in an identity crisis of sorts, from what I'm seeing on social.
Yeah, there's a lot of scratching of the heads. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And look, we bring truth to you here, right? We're not going to sugarcoat anything. So there's some scratching of heads. There's no doubt about it. So look, as it relates to the Patriot missiles, yeah, I mean, that's happening. The question then becomes what's going to happen today on this, quote, Monday announcement regarding Russia. We don't know exactly. I'm assuming it'll be economic related, probably sanctions related, maybe something to do with more, not necessarily funding for Ukraine, but more weapons through NATO to Ukraine. We'll see. Jake, but it's interesting how Trump is trying to do this. He's like, look, we're going to send it to NATO, let NATO pay us for it, so we're not technically funding the Ukrainian war. But let's be honest, we know exactly what's going on here.
Yeah, but you make a good point here. I mean, this is a way to get two policy statements out at once. First, Vladimir Putin has been really jerking us around for a long time. Yep. That doesn't mean we want to go all in with Zelensky in Ukraine. Believe me, I understand that. But Putin's making it really, really hard for a decent resolution to all of this. But it also is an opportunity, as you mentioned, to remind everybody that NATO's got to put more of this burden on its shoulders. And if that means it's going to be the one to implement this, even though we, of course, paid for it and innovated this technology, at least it gets them involved in this. And they have been, under President Trump, putting more of their own skin in the game. So there are some positives from this. But I'm with Dr. Gina. This is not a situation that we wanted to see a couple of years ago, let alone even a couple of months ago. But I will say this. The biggest reason why this is happening this way is Vladimir Putin. This guy has been a dangerous person on the world stage for a very long time. Doesn't mean we have to go to war with him, but we do have to know who we're dealing with.
You wonder if he just really missed an opportunity here, because public sentiment was really opposed to Zelensky when he came to the White House. He seemed disrespectful, all of the rest of the things. It was really set up for Putin to kind of walk in and get his way, for the most part, with President Trump, and to at least take his phone calls, my goodness, and be friendly. But instead, President Trump, I think, is a little annoyed now with Putin, and I think he may have pushed him right back over into Zelensky's corner, David. Yeah.
10 seconds, but I think Putin's way all along has been, I'm not stopping this war for one dang second. He wants the whole, quote, enchilada, even if he has to wait a few years. So this idea that Putin was ever ready to negotiate, I don't buy it.
Yeah. All right, you guys, today's Bible verses from Psalm 37, verses 23 and 24. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholds him with his hand. President Trump is now defending Attorney General Pam Bondi and has called as these calls for her to resign. This continued to mount out there in social media. Trump posted on Truth Social, "What's going on with my boys?" And in some cases, gals. They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is doing a fantastic job, in caps lock, We are on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and the selfish people are trying to hurt it, all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. Some have called for Bondi to resign after the DOJ announced there was no Epstein client list, and Epstein, they are saying, committed suicide and took his life. For more, let's bring in RAV Chief White House correspondent Brian Klin. Brian, what are things like on Capitol Hill? Because I know, here's the great thing about you, Brian. You are from not the heartland per se, but really the heart of America. And you have your finger on the pulse of MAGA. And yet there you are in the Beltway. Now, most people, when they go to the Beltway, they get corrupted. And we watch for it every day, Brian. I'm warning you. Our audience... They're watching you, but you seem to still get it. So, does Capitol Hill perceive the identity crisis that the rest of us here in the real world are perceiving?
I think so. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I certainly understand everyone's anger, because it's come out to anger, disappointment, how this whole Jeffrey Epstein file has developed into. You might want to note that Pam Bondi was with President Trump yesterday at the FIFA Cup match there in New Jersey, and I think that is symbolic of him still supporting his Attorney General. Now, that long, lengthy Truth Social post that you mentioned, I think created an earthquake amongst MAGA, because MAGA very much, and we heard that during the Student Action Summit there in Tampa, MAGA is not over this thing. It's not going to go away. I don't know how you handle it from here. But I will say this, Dr. Gina, I just don't want MAGA to be the party of never happy, that we're never happy. We have all these amazing accomplishments in the last 6 months. President Trump has done some things that he's promised on the campaign trail. He did 20 of the top 47 promises that he's done. And I don't want us to fall in this trap where no matter how good things are going, we're focusing on what didn't happen. And I don't want that to divide the party. I don't want us to slow us down. And in fact, Pam Bondi announced a few days ago, pardon, they're basically getting the DOJ off this doctor's back for basically protecting people from getting the vaccine. So she's doing some, against some medical malpractice, if you will, that they weaponized that industry. She's doing some great things. But I certainly understand the frustration within MAGA in regards to this. But just like I said, I don't want us to be the party of never happy. I want us to celebrate the wins that we're getting, maybe scratch our heads on the ones we didn't, but we got to move forward and stay together.
No, I think that's a really good point. I mean, look, let's be honest. This is a loss for the Trump administration, but they were undefeated going in, right? 8-0. It's like an NFL team. You're 8-0. Okay, you have one loss. You're still 8-1. Is the point. So to that degree. Hey, Brian, there's so much more to talk about, but we got to move on to another headline, which is happening in a couple hours. The NATO chief is going to be there at the White House, inside the Oval Office with President Trump. Let's talk about this, because we understand there's going to be a big Monday announcement, or at least that was what President Trump was saying, regarding Russia. Any sense of what that will be? I'm assuming it's going to be economic related, something to do with sanctions, potentially something to do with NATO and some sort of deal there as it relates to arms.
Yeah, from what I'm hearing also, they will be purchasing these long-range missiles, NATO will, from the U.S. That Ukraine can use. Now, note, these long-range missiles would be long enough to hit Moscow. So that gets us in a situation where I don't think any of us want to be. If you combine what, Dr. Gina, you said this at the top of the show, I mean, MAGA was very much against this war, funding this war, getting involved in this war. Now we're selling missiles to NATO that Ukraine can use in response to this conflict. So you've got that side of it. I also think there's going to be an economic announcement here shortly against sanctions against countries who buy oil from Russia. Huge sanctions against that, perhaps some tariff increase as well. So we'll see how that falls out. That happens around 10 o'clock here local time. We'll get the particulars on that deal. But once again, I want to say, and Dr. Gina, you brought this up, MAGA is not necessarily supportive of us providing weapons, because now we're engaged in a full-fledged war. That was one of the things that we said we weren't going to do on the campaign trail. Now we're in it, not just just, we tried to negotiate it and we tried to end the war on day one, as President Trump said, but Putin has not necessarily wanted to do that. And of course, Zelensky played little clown games, which didn't allow that to happen as well. So here we are. But once again, don't be the party of never happy. Let's put a little bit of faith in this administration behind me that at the end of the day, they have a plan to not only achieve war peace, but keep us out of any long-term wars as well.
All right, Brian, speaking of happy, let's get a little bit of comic relief here. Here's my test for whether or not you have a sense of humor. If you didn't laugh 10 years ago when after Megyn Kelly hit Donald Trump with all those accusations about things he said about women, and he interrupted her and said, no, only Rosie O'Donnell. If you didn't laugh, you don't have a sense of humor. So here is a follow-up on the Rosie O'Donnell situation. President Trump is apparently threatening to rescind her citizenship because she says she's lived in Ireland. She moved to Ireland because she can't stand a country that's run by President Trump. I'm sorry, I'm still laughing from that joke, especially since, of course, Megyn Kelly is now a supporter of President Trump. She showed up at some of his rallies. I thought that was one of the funniest moments in American political history. Now he's doubling down on it. Does President Trump really have the power to do this? And if so, and if he doesn't, can we at least laugh about it, please?
We can laugh about it. I remember asking the Prime Minister when he was in the Oval Office with President Trump, why you are allowing Rosie O'Donnell to live in your country, someone who's so unhappy, and Irish people, as far as I can see, are the most happiest people on earth. He got a chuckle out of that. No, he does not have the ability to take away someone's citizenship. It's basically, he's not doesn't have any lawful means to do that. I think this is just a continuation of just kind of trolling her and for her anti-American rhetoric that she spews on her social media platforms almost on a weekly basis. Look, if you're in Ireland and you're having a good time, the food's good, the weather's great, the people are friendly, enjoy it, post up about that, and enough about how much you hate America and you hate President Trump. So I think he's having some fun on a Saturday afternoon with this. And of course, the media loves to take this story, and this is the one thing I don't like about this. They'll take this story and they'll spin it and they'll make it seem like, well, he's coming after you. If he can do it to her, he can do it to you, and trying to make it look like this dictatorship, this king, if you will, that makes everyone leave his country. So that's the flip side of doing something like this, is the media doesn't have a sense of humor. The left doesn't have a sense of humor. Us, as far as conservatives, we get a good laugh out of it.
Wasn't she supposed to be? Wait, is she a she? Does she still identify as a she? Am I misgendering her right now? I better be careful. Brian Glenn, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm going to check it.
Yeah, you better check that out, because I don't know. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. New reporting on a potential Israel-Hamas ceasefire. Will we ever see a deal? We have the latest. Later also reporting on failed screenings at the border. What exactly came in? Well, we have the latest ahead on American Sunrise. So stay with us.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
United States Capitol, where so much gets done, including naming post offices. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. I'm David Brody. Coming up, Elon Musk was busy over the weekend. He had a few choice words to say about what President Trump and the Trump administration is doing or not doing regarding the Epstein case. Oh, boy, buckle the seatbelt. We'll talk about it in a moment. First, though, Jake Novak standing by with our next guest, and we know him well. It's all sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
Well, everyone, ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas continued in Doha, Qatar over the weekend, and they've been rocky. Some of the key sticking points remaining are the release of the remaining hostages and the distribution of aid to the people of Gaza. That aid just keeps getting attacked by Hamas people. Both sides have been trying to work this out. They're trying to work out a 60-day ceasefire that President Trump wants. For more, let's bring in RAB correspondent Oscar El Blue Ramirez, who is in Israel right now. Oscar, what is the feeling in the country right now? Are they feeling like a ceasefire any minute now, like they might get the hostages back? Or is there resignation that Hamas is just being intransigent right now?
Jake, thanks so much for the invitation. Well, the whole population of Israel, they are pushing for that. They're pushing for the release of the hostages. That's the number one thing. But we went to the Gaza Strip, and there is still continuous bombings. And this is due to the recent attack of 5 IDF soldiers by Hamas, killing 5 of them immediately. On the next day, there were bombings of the IDF continuously to try to secure that area. The negotiations are just exactly the same. You know, they're trying to negotiate to release the hostages, but Hamas keeps pushing the ideology that wants to push the IDF from the Gaza Strip. Already Benjamin Netanyahu said multiple times, we are not going to negotiate this. We are willing to sit down and try to create a ceasefire a particular amount of days, but you need to release hostages, and we need to stop the killing of, potential IDF soldiers in this Gaza Strip area. There were more than 5 to 6 bombings that we witnessed just a couple of days ago in the Gaza Strip. We were just right there, a kilometer away. So the agitated situation continues right there, Jake.
What's the feeling of the people in Israel about Netanyahu? We have about 30 seconds left. Is there frustration with him? Because we know that there have been outside forces that have gotten people to be more vocal against Netanyahu, but really it's kind of sponsored by people who are anti-Israel.
Yes, absolutely. We were in the Golan Heights, and also we were in Haifa and Tel Aviv, and we were talking to people, and everybody's exactly the same, is in the same boat. They want to combat the Hamas. They completely support Netanyahu, and they ultimately also, they talk about great things about President Trump, about, getting this mission with Iran executed perfectly and correctly. So they are in full support of Benjamin Netanyahu and waiting to see if this ceasefire can be accomplished.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I think President Trump could get 75% of the popular vote in Israel if he ever ran there. Oscar El Blue Ramirez, thank you so much for your time, and stay safe in the Holy Land. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Up next, FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino is reportedly considering resigning as a result of the Epstein files fallout. Will it happen? We'll take a look. But first, a quick look at Today in History. It was on this day in 1789 that the French Revolution began with the storming of the Bastille prison in Paris. It is now celebrated as France's National Day, proclaiming liberty, equality, fraternity for all of its citizens. American Sunrise returns in just a moment. If you ever get a chance to go to Paris for Bastille Day, it's a fun time.
That is Little Italy in New York. I grew up in the city, mean streets of the Upper West Side, the latte-sipping Zabar's crowd. But I made my way down to Little Italy many a time, and I overate as expected. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. All right, President Trump defends Attorney General Pam Bondi over the weekend as calls for her to resign mount. So this is what Trump posted on Truth Social. Quote, I won't do the imitation. It's kind of getting old at this point. What's going on with my boys, and in some cases, gals? They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's doing a fantastic job. We're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and selfish people, interesting, are trying to hurt it all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. So some have called for Bondi to resign after the DOJ announced there was no Epstein client list. All right, for more, let's bring in the host of the podcast, What's Bugging Me, on Ricochet. He's also the author of the new book, The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk, and that would be Dennis Neal. Dennis, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. So speaking of Elon Musk, he's been ripping President Trump over the weekend on all of this Epstein stuff. He just said, release the files, and then he posted this. This is a very big deal. What the heck kind of system are we living in? If thousands of kids were abused, the government has videos of the abusers, and yet none of the abusers are even facing charges. I'm curious to get your thoughts on everything going on regarding Epstein. Good morning.
Well, good morning to you. It's great to see you. Thanks for letting me come on. You know, MAGA is riven. My gosh, have we ever seen a split like this? I love always that Republicans are able to debate each other and argue vociferously far more than the Democrats who walk in brainwashed lockstep. At this point, however, I've never seen it divided this way. Now, Bongino is reported to have clashed with Bondi, right? Yet another report says, nah, his real fight is with Susie Wiles, the incredible chief of staff. Now look at the difference between these first months of Trump 2 versus Trump 1. And Susie Wiles is a big reason, man. She runs that place like a tight ship, and you don't mess with Susie. Now we watch Bongino, and we have to wonder, what is motivating him more, ego or outrage for the lack of justice? Now, you know, Dan Bongino made a big name for himself on the outside before entering the administration, and now he's got to decide, does he drop this and follow what Trump wants, or does he stand up for himself? And that's why my prediction would be he's going to end up resigning. But, you know, you've got another faction now. Scott Adams says, the creator of Dilbert, he posted this saying, you know, Trump's our leader, and if we in MAGA trust him and trust his judgment, maybe he's got reasons for why he's doing what he's doing. And maybe he's, you know, making a deal with the deep state. You guys stop leaking, stop opposing me, stop doing all this stuff, and maybe I'll help you keep quiet this honeypot operation that you guys knew about and you were involved in. It's all very multi-layered. And yet one thing that President Trump, whom I admire greatly, cannot get around, guys, is even the Justice Department, which is saying there's no case here, says that 1,000 underage girls were raped in this entire thing. How can you guys then say there's no case? Give me a break.
Yeah, there's just a couple of things that surprise me that seem unlike President Trump's character. And, you know, given the pressures of President, who in the world, I can't even fathom. Like, I think most people, most men would crumble. And certainly he handles a lot on his shoulders and manages to continue to be so productive, as David said, conquering 20 out of 45 campaign promises already. But I was surprised that the memo was released in the middle of the night on the weekend of the horrible Texas flood losses of children. Because for me, I was just waiting for if President Trump, if he's making this decision based on what so many in MAGA are assuming, that he has a long-term plan, that he's somehow playing 3D chess as we expect, then his normal approach to this, it would seem to me, would be to have a meeting with Pam, with Dan, with Cash maybe, with himself and whoever else he feels is involved, and sit down and say to the American people, look, you have to trust me, MAGA. I've stood by you this long. I'm not going to disappoint you this time. I was surprised there wasn't a little bit of that in that tweet, too, of, hey, vision, long-term vision, MAGA, be patient. We have good things coming. If there's this big plan that everybody who is okay with this so far and how this is, kind of unfolding, does any of that surprise you, that some of this doesn't seem as Trumpian as what we're used to, with his just very candid explanations to MAGA, usually on these kinds of things, almost to code?
Yeah, and it's not working this time, is it? This won't go away. And now I'm fascinated. Are you guys rather surprised? I'm surprised to see Democrats stepping up in Congress saying, well, by golly, we'll lead the effort to get these documents disclosed and to investigate and get at the bottom of this. And be careful what you wish for, Democrats, because do you know that when there was a break-in at the Democrat National Committee server that was blamed on the Russians, though it was probably an inside job. So break-in released all these emails. And there was an email some years ago from Hillary Clinton. I think it might have been when she was Secretary of State. And the email says to her aides, you better get this advisor, this staffer, out of jail in Haiti. Otherwise, we're all going to hang. And that staffer was arrested at the Haiti airport with a couple dozen orphans who were unaccounted for, undocumented. They were just kids getting put on a plane, getting ready to leave Haiti when she was arrested. And that email from Hillary was rather interesting. And of course, the media, which spent years going after Russiagate hoax and making up the Trump ties to Russia, media never really looked into that one. Maybe they should. Maybe the Democrats should.
Dennis, now let's enter into the mix the voice of Alan Dershowitz, the professor emeritus, the Harvard law expert, probably one of the greatest legal minds of all time. He comes out last week and says he does know the names of some of these Epstein clients. He says, hand to God, he knows them, but that he is bound by a confidentiality agreement, and of course he does respect the law, not to reveal them. I mean, to me, this is one of the things that's going to keep this thing alive for a long time. I mean, is there some way that maybe Dershowitz can be relieved from this confidentiality agreement? Who does he know, and when did he know it? I mean, if you got someone like Dershowitz, who's been very fair with President Trump, to say the least, saying this, I don't see this story going away anytime soon.
So politics is personal, and Alan Dershowitz came on my podcast, What's Bugging Me? So I'm going to defend Alan no matter what. So understand that first. But, I think that Alan Dershowitz, I don't think there was a client list. I don't think that there was literally a physical list that he kept. I think he had stuff all over the place, Epstein did. So I think that, the government can come out and say there is no client list and still be telling the truth, quote unquote. But Dershowitz obviously knows there's something going on here. And, it's not thousands of hours of videotape, as Pam Bondi proclaimed, of these assaults. It's not with one guy, Epstein. It's with a number of other adults. I mean, there are some people, like Bill Clinton, who is said to have gone to Epstein Island 26 times. And there are other people who went there once. And so do you smear all of them all together? I understand some of the concerns here. It's just that MAGA, the protesters, are right when they say that, hey, there's crimes going on here and you guys are, where's the crackdown? And isn't there that feeling that powerful people in both parties get away with murder, literally, and never pay the price for it? When will some of these guys finally pay a price? And people are getting fed up. And I think President Trump may be underestimating that vehemence, to where, they're not going to just simply obediently oblige. And, President Trump told us the show's over. Let's move on. So we'll just move on. They ain't moving on, are they?
No, they're really not, because as you said, Dennis, there's morality involved here, big time, right? I mean, this is about sexual assaults potentially here. I should say I'll just say allegedly, obviously at this point. And so MAGA wants answers on that. They want justice, and they want these potential, allegedly predators to see time behind jail. There is a moral aspect to this, and that's the problem, the disconnect coming from the Trump administration and MAGA, and not to mention transparency, by the way. You know, this is the most transparent administration ever, ... except for this. Something doesn't add up.
Also,
right.
they gave us that videotape, but then remember Wired magazine, a very credible source, Wired, came out and said this tape is doctored. It's very clear that it's been photoshopped, et cetera, et cetera. Dude, why aren't you guys releasing the actual unexpurgated tape? What are you doing? Stop raising more questions than you're answering.
Yep, they're going to have to address this. This isn't over. Dennis, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Have a great day, guys. Thanks a lot.
All right, coming up, what food should you possibly avoid on a date? New details on foods that could lead to body odor. What? Oh, great. All right, I'm going to pay attention to this. I hope you do too. We're coming back next on American Sunrise.
You have Times Square. Looky there. City that never sleeps. Welcome back to American Sunrise. I am Dr. G. By the way, New York pizza, bad. St. Louis pizza, good. Sorry, didn't mean to start the fight again. Dave Brody, I just thought while you're not here to defend yourself, I could go ahead and start it. Thank you all for joining us. Y'all are fascinating in the chat today. People should get in there. The debate. What I love about conservatives is that we can sit there and debate these issues and strongly disagree and still agree on a lot of things and come together when we need to. I love that. Time now for today's health news, sponsored by the Wellness Company. Under the microscope today, foods and body odor, something we may not want to talk about, but we're going to if I continue with the voice here. And there are some foods to avoid eating if you don't want to end up with body odor. The first is red meat, they say. Red meat can reportedly release odorless proteins through sweat, and when they mix with skin bacteria, they can release an odor. The next is actually vegetables, as they can reportedly release, so much for paleo, reportedly release sulfuric acid in some people and lead to intense body odor. and bad breath. And finally, there are some spices that can contain sulfur, and when they react with skin bacteria, they can release an intense odor as well. Well, I was at Sulphur Springs this weekend, and I'll tell you what, the smell of the sulfur, you get used to it once you're there for a while. It's actually really, it doesn't bother you after a while. But when we were driving away, we could still smell it in the vehicle. That's where, yeah, well, we ate a lot of steak and vegetables too, so maybe there's that. But I'll tell you what, I think my husband is almost exclusively paleo, and I never smell any of this. So I don't know. That's just me. I'm exclusively carbo, whatever that is. A new administration in Washington, D.C. has brought a lot of positive changes when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system. The reality is, however, there's only so much the government can do. And if we really want to make America healthy again, got to start at home. And that's where the Wellness Company comes in. You see and hear from their doctors all the time, and you know that their products are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you and your family healthy. The Wellness Company gives you the opportunity to make sure you're prepared for whatever happens with their series of prescription medical kits. These kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist in the use of the meds in the kit. Also, the Wellness Company offers a variety of products from parasite cleanses, methylene blue, weight loss, so much more, probably something for body odor in there. These can help you stay healthy and live a longer and more satisfying and perhaps less stinky life. I'm just making that part up. Make America healthy again, though. I'm not making that up. That starts at home. Do your part and protect the health of yourself and your family. Go to twc.health/RAV to get today. Give it an order, twc.health/RAV. Use the promo code RAV. That'll save you 10%, David. St. Louis pizza's better. St. Louis pizza's better. I really just went there.
You know, I tell you what, this just in, I listened to the show, you know, just because I'm not narcissistically on camera, I heard what you said, and you are incorrect. As a matter of fact, go to the chat. I'm looking, New York pizza is the bomb.
No, New York pizza is like as generic and conventional as pizza gets. You know, you got Chicago pizza where they do the sauce on top. Yeah, it's normal pizza. There's nothing special about that, Dave Brody, except that you are supposed to fold it and eat it. That is not special. St. Louis pizza, on the other hand, using provolone cheese, which you probably don't even know what that is, but when it melts, it becomes this creamy deliciousness. And the thin crust that just crunches,
Have the guys in the control, are we alerting our guests that we're going to have to cancel him because we're going to have to talk about this? No, no, we have to go to we have to move on. But don't you worry, you have not had the last word, Dr. G. Oh, love you, by the way.
Love you. All right.
So now we are seeing some new reporting on how the Mexican cartels are getting some of their money. This is what Fox News' Laura Ingraham had to say. Take a look.
One of my sources today in the federal government told me, look, remember that the money made at these farms or processing plants, remember, especially involving recent migrants, people who've crossed the border in the last few years, underage or not, a percentage of that money they're making, whatever they're making, is going to pay off their debt to the cartels who made sure that they got over the border. So these illegal pot grows and other agricultural interests are helping fund the cartels that are terrorizing America with drugs and also engaged in rampant human trafficking.
All right, for more, let's bring in the Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council. That'd be Art Del Cueto. Art, thanks for being here. What do you make of some of those comments? What's going on with these Mexican drug cartels? How much of that is correct?
Look, a lot of it is correct because at the end of the day, you got to pay your debts, right? And nothing's for free. So a lot of these groups that have crossed, especially during the Biden administration, they still have their debt that they have to pay the cartels. We've said it many times before. Nothing has crossed the southern border without paying the cartel. And that includes, obviously, those individuals that came across and asked for asylum. It includes the gotaways, there were so many of during the Biden administration. I encountered groups that came through, and when they saw Border Patrol agents, they would run towards them, turn themselves in. And when asked, hey, where did you cross? What's going on? A lot of them said, we didn't pay the cartel. We tried to come across without having to pay that toll fee, and they were chased into the U.S. by cartel members trying to catch them because they hadn't paid. So when you see millions and millions that are here in this country, many of them have already paid their debt. A lot of that money has already been given to the cartels. But when you see them in these remote areas working in these type of situations, a lot of them, they still owe, and some of their paycheck is going back to the cartel to pay off the debt of crossing into the country.
There are new reports, Art, on screening at the border. The DHS watchdog group has found that the Border Patrol failed to properly screen illegal aliens with potential ties to terrorism, but also found there was not a uniform policy for this under the Biden administration, of course. 300,000 missing children are no updates. Where are those children?
The truth is nobody knows. And if you look at we're what, 6 years in from when Biden first took office, or close to 5 years in from when he first took office. So a lot of these underage children, they were within the range of 16, 17 years old. So many of them are now full grown adults. And that's also going to be part of the problem in trying to find out where these individuals ended up.
And what condition they're in and how they're acting out on their trauma. This is such a mess. I tell you what, we really are going to have hell to pay with all the abused children out there because of these policies. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being with us, Art Del Cueto.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, coming up, Oklahoma aiming to root out wokeness in teachers that are planning to move there. Will this work? We're going to take a look next on American Sunrise.
Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. All right, 1775 Coffee. Let's talk about it. It isn't just a brand, it's a stand. They've created something called Rejuvenate Roast. It's a bold, dark roast infused with CAAKG. Sounds fancy, but here's the deal. It's a clinically studied compound, and it's shown to support healthy aging, fight inflammation, boost energy, and even reduce your biological age by up to 8 years. I'll take that. And it's not some gimmick, it's real science being used in coffee that actually tastes incredible. And if clean energy and mental clarity are your thing, it is for me. They also have a mushroom coffee packed with 5 functional mushrooms that support your brain, body, and focus. No jitters, no crash, just fuel that actually works and doesn't come, by the way, from some corporate agenda factory. So everything they make is single origin. It's mold and toxin free. It's roasted fresh weekly in Miami. and made by people who actually believe in free speech. Hey, got to take it. They also believe, of course, in truth and this country. So yeah, I back it. As a matter of fact, I drink it every morning. Here it is. Look, I even have the 1775 coffee mug. It's fantastic. So here's what you do. Go to 1775coffee.com/RAV. Use code RAV for 10% off and start your day with coffee that stands for truth, health, and freedom, and the American way. Oh, wait, that's Superman. All right, now let's send it over to Jake. Jake, to you.
Thanks, David. Now that we are caffeinated, I hope you're all caffeinated, it's time to stay awake and not woke. Oklahoma teachers might now have to prove they are not woke in order to work. Well, at least new people who want to come in and teach in Oklahoma. The State Department of Education is partnering with PragerU, a great online site, by the way, to come up with a new test to find out if teachers are woke or not woke. The test would be for teachers, again, moving there from other states, not for existing teachers, that have, quote, a history of promoting anti-American narratives. The test would reportedly test teachers on the Constitution, American exceptionalism, and their grasp of the fundamental difference between boys and girls. Gee, that's good. Let's bring in Gina and David for more. Hey, guys, this is something that frequent guest on both of our programs, American Sunrise Early Edition and American Sunrise, Ryan Walters. He's the schools chief of Oklahoma. He's running for governor, by the way, not officially yet. He's got a lot of innovative new ideas. But guys, I think there should be two rules for all teachers at any school: no gossip and no politics. And if you can't pass those two tests, you shouldn't be teaching our kids.
Yeah, well, I kind of think that teachers should also maybe have to know basic history, Constitution. I mean, I don't know whatever happened to teaching civics and history in our school, but I feel like it's such a great loss, such really great loss, David.
Yeah, and here's well, a couple things. First of all, I think it's a great idea, right? Okay, so let's just move on from that. But it troubles me. It troubles me that we're in this state where we have to do this. And that this is even proposed, and we'll see if it actually gets enacted, because we live in this pseudo-civil war. You know, Gina talks about the parallel economy, which of course is true. But if you think about it, and I say pseudo-civil war, I'm not talking about bayonets getting out, on both sides, but we live in a geographical civil war, an ideological civil war, an informational civil war. This is a historical civil war, if you think about it, as it relates to what version of history is going to win the day. And so that's my biggest concern, that we're kind of coming up with a different way. We always talk about the balkanization of America when it comes to immigration. But from just a pure American standpoint, there's kind of like an American balkanization going on, and everybody's going into their own fiefdoms. And, that's not where we want to be as a country, and I'm concerned about it.
Are you talking about... Are you talking, David, about the difference between, when you say the balkanization, are you talking about because there are homeschoolers that are taught one completely different way, and then you've got your inner city kids that are taught a completely different way, and those two, how are they ever going to even relate? Is that what you mean, kind of?
I'm just really talking about different camps, and in this case, ideological camps. And we've got a division between which side of history is going to win. So really, it's just kind of a binary choice at this point. It might be more than binary, actually. But that's what I mean by balkanization. Maybe that's too strong of a word, because balkanization suggests, multiple different groups. And I know it's used in an ethnicity standpoint. I'm not talking about it in that standpoint. But I'm really just talking about two different ideological groups.
Sorry. They showed a sweet little guy with Down syndrome, and he was just super cute. Sorry, I just reacted to our own B-roll.
Yeah.
Distracted by the B-roll.
The best schools are the ones where the teachers aren't droning in front of the children anyway. This shouldn't be a place where they just stand up and lecture the kids. All right, coming up, the role of faith-based summer camps, I went to one for 8 years, has been huge for many people across this country for generations. How can they come together after the Texas floods? We are going to get there. We're going to find out how they do it next on American Sunrise.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. Time now for our moment of faith. It's brought to us by Lee Greenwood and the God Bless the USA Bible. All right, in focus today, the role of faith-based summer camps. The Associated Press lays it all out in a new piece on how they are a rite of passage. No doubt about that. A former counselor at a faith-based camp said they are such a unique experience. But now, of course, camps like those are grieving after the floods at Camp Mystic down in Texas. For more, let's bring in pastor, author, speaker, also former professional soccer player Jesse Bradley to the show. Jesse, great to see you. I mean, what in the world do you say to young campers at these faith-based camps? I mean, you know, especially like it's happening in real time and you're at a faith-based camp somewhere else, but you no doubt hear of the news. I mean, you kind of have to address it. And what do you say to these campers? My goodness.
David, this is a tragedy. We're all grieving together, but we're also grieving with hope because Jesus helps us overcome. And yes, it's a reality. There's danger everywhere, but camps are outstanding. You know, I've served and spoken at a camp in California, Mount Herman, and then this summer, our entire family is going to Lakeside here at Whidbey Island in the Seattle area. And the truth is, when you step away from your distractions and you meet with God, have an encounter with God, because creation at these camps, it points us to God. He's good. He exists. Also, there's incredible staffs and counselors. You have God's word. You know, I started going to a Jewish camp when I was 11. My stepdad's Jewish, and I was singing those songs all year long. And there's something that happens at camp where you have an encounter with God and your relationship. Many come to know Jesus. Many grow in their faith. And yes, what can we learn from this tragedy? Absolutely. But we're going to move forward. And camps have overcome the pandemic as well. So there's a lot of commitment, devotion there, making special memories. And I know for us, it's a tradition that we're not going to give up.
No doubt about that. By the way, speaking of Jewish camps, I went to a Jewish summer camp as well. I gave my life to Christ in 1988, but before that, when I was about that age, 10 or 11, I went to French Woods up in New York State. So regarding these kids, there's a lot to kind of go through here because it's not just kids, obviously, it's the adults. I mean, this idea that, I mean, if I can just say it this way, it's hard to say, but some kids survived and others didn't. I mean, just to kind of figure that out and wrestle with that is tough stuff, Jesse.
It really is. And we don't always know the why, but what can we do going forward? You know, for all of us, we make prayerful decisions. You look at the staff there, Richard, who was the founder of the camp and leader, and his wife, they had been just discipling and helping women grow, young girls become solid in their faith. You know, he literally died. So there's no question there. The love, no greater love than to lay down your life for someone. And there were other heroes that helped rescue over 150 of those girls that were in trouble. So we look at that and it points us to Jesus, who laid down his life for us. You know, at camp, you hear about the gospel, the love of God, a relationship with God. There's nothing more important than that. So yes, whether it's a missions trip, camp, you know, there's a lot of different settings that we serve, inner city as well. There's no guarantee it's going to be safe, but we take every precaution and we make sure there's best practices. And overall, the number of lives that have been changed at camp over the years, I mean, it stands out. And while there are some tragedies, Jesus helps us overcome. And with camps, there's collaboration. We work well together. I love the network, the unity. It's not competition. But how can we make camps incredible places? Safety is a top priority.
Jesse Bradley, great advice. We appreciate you being here. Important. Thank you so much.
Thanks for valuing faith as well, David.
I appreciate that. We do it every single day here for sure. Great to have you on the show. We're back with the second hour of American Sunrise in 2 minutes. Stick around, everybody.
Introducing the limited edition God Bless the USA Bible, inspired by Lee Greenwood's hit song and the most recognized patriotic anthem in America, God Bless the USA. The God Bless the USA large print leather-bound King James Bible also contains America's founding documents, the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance, along with a handwritten chorus to Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA. With its large print and slim design, This Bible invites you to explore God's Word anywhere, anytime. The God Bless the USA Bible makes the perfect gift and cherished family heirloom keepsake to pass on to future generations. Designed for an easy reading experience in the trusted King James Version translation, this large print Bible is perfect to take to church, Bible study, work, and for traveling. Order yours today at GodBlessTheUSABible.com.
Ahead on the second hour of American Sunrise, Washington whispers grow louder by the hour over the Epstein files controversy as Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino face off while the president calls for everyone to stand down. We have the latest. It was the day that almost changed history. It's been 1 year since the attempt on President Trump's life, yet there has been no fallout or firings. Why exactly? Well, we have more questions than answers. Those remain about the assassination attempt of President Trump. And also a new report says the Secret Service had threat intel 10 days before a shot was ever fired in Butler. Where was the breakdown? In moments, we'll take you back to that day with a congressman who was just feet away from the president as shots rang out. And the on-again, off-again feud between Rosie O'Donnell and President Trump is on again in a big way as an intercontinental war of words breaks out. We have that story, the latest developments on the grudge match, and so much more as the second hour of American Sunrise starts right now. Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
we have breaking news to share with you.
Politics.
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
We've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second hour of American Sunrise. I'm David Brody, coming to you from the deep state. Let's bring in Dr. G in West Palm Beach, who's with us. T. Bates, by the way, will be along in a little bit. Gina, you know, we talked about a lot in that first hour. One thing we didn't talk about is President Trump at that FIFA World Cup, specifically. Some of that video is just, I mean, it's great. He's literally on stage with the winning club, Chelsea. And I don't know, just to me, to be in an open air stadium, almost pretty much a year after the assassination attempt, 83,000 people. I mean, the whole thing is pretty fascinating to me that, you know, there it is. And he comes on stage and I mean, to me, it's just kind of impressive that he would even do something like this. But this is President Trump. He doesn't mind.
Yeah, I think it's impressive too. It's gutsy because it's traditionally a Latin sport. Perhaps some people there that aren't super fond of President Trump. I'm sure they kept it a pretty big secret, but I don't know. I still think I'd be scared. I was cracking up, David, because someone just sent me Babylon B says it's the 1-year anniversary of some loud pops at a Trump rally.
Yeah. Thank you, Anderson Cooper.
CNN
for
reporting.
That.
Yeah. But no, it was pretty gutsy, and I honestly think the guy's pretty fearless at this point. I think once you've been shot at, and you get death threats every single day, you probably just get. He even said, "I don't like to think about it." I don't think he does like to think about it, but you know what I like to think about? St. Louis style pizza, and I've got some right here.
Oh,
David.
gosh, you're there again. Every single segment now. My goodness. Oh, okay, whatever.
I'm Vanna White with my St. Louis style pizza. I'm telling you, you've got to try it. It's the best pizza in the world. It's not like traditional pizza. It's not like boring conventional New York pizza. But you know what's great about New York? I do love the street food. We could agree on that probably.
Well, can I just a quick question? I know we have to get to our first subject, but what is it about St. Louis pizza? I don't get it. So tell me, explain
the cheese.
Why.
It's the provolone cheese that you won't get on anything else, and you can't even find it in grocery stores in Florida. I have to order it from St. Louis, and when you melt it, provolone becomes very different than any other cheese, almost like a cream sauce, and it is just. I don't know. It tastes better than anything I've ever had in my life. And then also I love that the crust is super crunchy, like it's toasty and crunchy and super thin. So you can eat a piece of pizza, and you don't feel like you had, like you're going to explode. It's just this nice little thin crust pizza. It's very good. It's like a delicacy, a little more like a delicacy. A little interesting, David, as opposed to pizza dough that you fold in half. It's just we're never going to agree on this, David Brody.
No, we won't agree. But here's the good news. It's a free country, freedom of speech. You're entitled to have the wrong opinion, Gina. That is fine. Okay. All right. We turn once again now to the assassination attempt on President Trump's life 1 year ago. Our next guest has a perspective unlike any other. He was just mere feet away from the president, reflecting on the day this weekend. Pennsylvania Congressman Dan Muser said the following. He said this: I was there on July 13, 2024, when the shots rang out in Butler, PA. Standing in the front row, I watched as President Trump went down, thinking he'd been seriously wounded. He goes on to say, when he stood, the crowd stood and chanted, "Fight, fight, fight." Unforgettable moment of strength and unity. But 1 year later, the American people are still waiting for more answers. He says the security failures that day were unacceptable and can never happen again. And Congressman Dan Muser now joins us now on American Sunrise. Congressman, thanks for being here. So I guess the question is, what questions do you want answered? There are many of them, but I'm sure you've got a list. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to both of you. It's real nice being with you. Look, I've got 754,000 constituents, and a lot of them this past week are asking me, what else do we know? What was the motive? Did this crooks act alone? How did this happen? And so, honestly, we need our new Secret Service, our new Homeland Security, which our Secret Service reports to within Homeland Security, with under Kristi Noem, of course, to do their best to provide those answers. So we continue to build trust with the American people, because there's, trust is a slippery slope. We build it. President Trump is extraordinary at building trust, because he promises kept, the whole thing. He's delivering on what he campaigned on. And so here is another opportunity for us to provide some trust. Just on the day itself, I was with the president that morning, or that afternoon, I guess it was. It was great. He's always in good spirits. I told him the hat I was wearing I bought for $8, and he couldn't believe it, because it was a pretty good replica of his signature on the hat itself, and he was, so he's giving me a hard time about that. We were having a good time. I spoke before the rally. Dave McCormick, Mike Kelly, just a couple of us there, because everybody was heading out to the convention. And then, as you know, at 6:11, just right after he asked Dave McCormick to come up on the stage, which is kind of a miracle in itself, that he decided to tell Dave, "No, stand back. I'll have you come up later." The bullets rang out, And you've seen the videos. There was initial shock, a little bit of pandemonium. I'm not going to say everybody was calm, but as you stated, the moment the president stood up, put fight, not only did we know he was going to be okay, but everybody knew they were going to be okay, and it felt like our nation was going to be okay too.
Yeah, everybody remembers where they were when that moment occurred. I was standing in my living room and I couldn't believe my eyes, and I sat down and it was tears and the whole thing. I wonder if you have had a chance, because I met Corey Comperatore's wife and children at an event in Washington, D.C. recently, and their pleas for, not just justice, but even like, what was the motive? Like, just they want, they lost their dad, their husband that day, who by all reports was an incredible human being. And that's not going away. And I think we as a nation just can't forgive this. An assassination attempt on our president, 3 others shot, Corey gone. Congressman, we're just not going to let this go. And where does this go from here?
Well, I agree with you, Gina. I've met Helen Comperatore several times, her daughters as well, at different rallies. They stand there stoically, right up and sit there, but stand with us right up in the front row. I sat just a couple of chairs away from them, spoke to them all the time. And she didn't have a lot to say. She had her sadness, but she was there, and she just looked like a strong American lady, with a level of sadness in her. And the daughter's the same, but they were there. And Corey, as you said, his reputation is incredible. Everybody who ever met him loved him, and his volunteerism and his work as a firefighter and everything else. Amazing guy, amazing Pennsylvanian. And I unfortunately also saw him lying there on the bleacher moments after he was hit, because I turned around. I thought the shooter was actually underneath the bleachers, or perhaps they were. That's how close the gunfire sounded. So I saw him there, and then Dr. Sweetland got on top of Corey, as did others. But Dr. Sweetland really went to work on him, and it was just an absolute tragedy that we lost Corey. So therefore, yes, I mean, that's a murder. The investigation needs to take place. There are some unanswered questions. Mike Kelly's a real good friend of mine. Mike's been doing interviews all weekend. He was head of the task force. I'm still not that happy that I wasn't on the task force, but they chose one of us that was there, and it was Mike, and he's Butler's his hometown. So he knows a lot about this. He knows the local police enforcement, and paid a lot of attention to all of this. And, he's not satisfied with the level of answers. Now, certainly, as we would expect, with the Biden administration completely uncooperative, and Jason Crow, the ranking member, the Democrat on the task force, echoed the same thing. But, it's been 5 months in, and our FBI is reviewing it all. We need some more. We just need the answers that people are asking, right? How did it happen? How's it going to be resolved moving forward? What was his motive? Give us proof that he didn't act alone. What was with the phones? We hear about the phones. Mm-hmm. We hear about some other, contacts on an international basis. All of those questions need to be directly dealt with and dismissed before people are going to really let this go. An assassination attempt on our great president.
Congressman, less than a minute left. Here's another portion of all of the questions that we're talking about. There's this headline from the Senate investigation into that day. It says this Grassley report concludes that the Secret Service failure to share threat information allowed for preventable tragedy in Butler, identifies a path forward for agency improvements. So this is interesting because it doesn't seem like that threat intelligence was necessarily getting to folks on the ground in Butler, even though it might not have been a critical kind of a situation where life was in danger, but there was a threat that never quite got, or threat assessment that never quite got to folks on the ground.
It's absolutely mind-boggling, right? I mean, how that would occur. How do they see one suspect on a roof as well and let the president walk out because the radios weren't connected? You know, the woman who was in charge of the ground preparation and tactical planning, it was her first outdoor event. They sent an absolute rookie up to lay out the planning, they meaning the Secret Service, and you saw to oversee, to manage. She was the lead manager in the commander on site. And you saw Cheadle's in her testimony afterwards. It was just an absolute joke. Now, she served in the Secret Service. I understand she was in charge of security at PepsiCo, but that was an unbelievably embarrassing lack of knowledge and provided no answers in her hearing. You know, she stepped down. Mm-hmm. So we, you know, it's just a very frustrating situation. It shows how badly bureaucracy works. Right? I've been in government now in the House for 6.5 years, my 4th term. I mean, bureaucrats either take the credit for the dawn, or if something doesn't go right, they blame somebody else. And that's why we're whittling down government and making it as accountable as possible. And only President Trump could do this.
Congressman Dan Muser from the great state of Pennsylvania, we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Congressman.
I appreciate you both. Thank you.
All right, coming up, are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Do you want to feel physically better? Well, if you suffer from persistent fatigue, joint pain or stiffness, even forgetfulness or mental sluggishness, we've got a solution in 2 minutes. Back in a moment.
California, and welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Terrance Bates. We appreciate you being here with us. In focus this morning, how to physically feel better. If you suffer from persistent fatigue, joint pain or stiffness, forgetfulness, even mental sluggishness, or if you're having a bloating or digestive issue that includes constant discomfort even with healthy foods, well, you may want to consider and think about inflammation. Is it part of your everyday? Life actually can be a lot better
My body was riddled with inflammation. I couldn't sit for more than 5 minutes because the pain would just be so severe. I heard you talking about pain and inflammation several months ago, and I said, that's what we're going to do. It is gone. My fatigue, gone. Brain fog, gone. IBS, gone. The redness and swelling in my face, gone. There has been a huge improvement in my asthma. I have not had one migraine since starting this program. My sleep is amazing. I didn't know you could feel that good sleeping.
All of those challenges are gone for that lady, but here right now is the owner and founder of Energized Health, John Jubilee. Johnny J, good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you, Terrance.
All right, let's talk a bit about inflammation, because we heard that in the lead up. It's been called the silent killer, even a secret epidemic. What is inflation? What causes it? And how can we deal with it?
Yeah, well, inflammation is really, just to break it down in the simplest scientific term, inflammation is what happened when we get an injury or even just get unhealthy cells in our body. So our body will produce inflammation. And Terrance, this is so easy for people to reverse. And again, all these clinical studies basically say 99% of diabetes or IBS or arthritis or asthma, all these things are totally inflammation-based diseases. And with intercellular hydration, you are pushing out all of the inflammation out of your cells. And when you push the inflammation out of your cell, you can reverse the disease. It's that simple.
When people are listening to you saying, oh, it's just pushing the inflammation out of the cell, well, how does one go about doing that? It's about really getting getting the toxicity out of the cells, I guess. How do you do that?
No, well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the other thing. So just picture it's the toxins, right? So intracellular hydration, the two things that we know clinically, and that's why we're a medically approved program. We push toxins out of the cell. We push inflammation out of the cell with our scientific protocol of intracellular hydration. And by the way, Terrance, this is really complicated science. It's thousands of pages of science. We filed 3 patents on it. But we break it down and we simplify it for people. And one of the things we're doing right now is our 555 challenge. And so I would invite people, Terrance, to just come in to the my555challenge.com. Just go log on. It'll take you 5 minutes, cost you $5, cup of coffee. You get to spend 5 days with Chelsea and I, and we will share with you how we have helped tens of thousands of people and how we can help you reverse whatever your illness, whatever your disease is with this breakthrough science.
Are you able to fully reverse whatever the illness is, the inflammation, the pain, the fatigue, the brain fog, any of that stuff? Are you able, and have you seen results that literally fully reverse this?
Well, Terrance, that's the best question you could have asked me for the day, because I'm going to give everybody some great hope today. You can go on the Better Business Bureau or Trustpilot or Google, or go look at reviews of tens of thousands of people for 28 years who said, this sounds too good to be true, but it changed my life. So our clients say, you reversed the irreversible. My doctor said I'd never reverse this. It reversed. And then the doctors who became our client, which is hundreds of doctors, by the way, they say you guys cracked the code of going to the root cause of illness and disease. You cracked the code, and it made me healthy.
John Jubilee, always a pleasure talking to you, my friend. Folks, if you'd like more information, the information is there at the bottom of your screen, my555challenge.com. You can log on, get all the information you need, even see testimonials, and decide if it's something that you may want to take part in. You can also just put your phone up to our screen right here, get that QR code, and it'll guide you on in. John Jubilee, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being here with us on American Sunrise.
Thank you, Terrance.
Well, folks, after this brief break, we'll be back with more American Sunrise. Stick around.
back to American Sunrise. We see the flags actually waving this morning. A breeze in Washington, D.C. Thank goodness for those people down there. Some kind of breeze, some kind of relief. Hey, the bell at the New York Stock Exchange is going to ring in, about 6 minutes. And as we wait, let's take a look at the futures. They're down. They were down on the Dow, by the way, more than 300 points overnight. They've much calmed down now. We're at 136 down. They're responding to the tariff news. They don't like new tariffs, but if this had been a couple of months ago, you'd see the Dow down 700 points in the futures. That's how things go right now. David Brody is going to join me right now. I want to talk first about something going on right now with the deficit. They told us, speaking of tariffs, they told us the tariffs would blow up the deficit, that we would all be eating potted meat on the streets and lining up for apples. Well, it turns out, and I hope Rand Paul and Thomas Massie are listening, Elon Musk too, we ran, David Brody's joining me now, a budget surplus in June. June's actually usually not a very good month for government revenues because it's 2 months after the taxes come in. It's a long story, but it's the first time we've been in the black for June in 8 years, and it's because of the tariff revenues. But also, David, if the tariffs were killing the economy otherwise, there wouldn't be a budget surplus. There would be a lot fewer business taxes and other money coming into the government. David, guess what? The people have been told a doom that doesn't happen, a Chicken Little syndrome. We actually had a nice month of June for the Treasury.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that's something you're not going to hear from Musk and Rand Paul and those guys for sure. Hey, I want to talk about skin in the game, or skin the game, I should say. That's the crowd, they're known as investors. I guess they're telling us loud and clear what most likely happened in that Air India crash last month, because we have more evidence of that this morning. Talk about that, Jake.
Yeah, the Air India crash was on June 12th. And when it happened, it was a Boeing 787 Dreamliner. I woke up that morning expecting to see Boeing shares crashing through the floor because it's a Boeing jet. You can imagine the bad news. But they were pretty stable that morning. And now that the preliminary investigation has came out over the weekend, David, Boeing shares are up. They're up more than 1% in the pre-market because it's looking more and more. And this is a frightening story, but it does seem to exonerate Boeing. It looks like, David, the fuel pump switches were turned off deliberately by one of the members of the crew, either the pilot or the co-pilot. Of course, that would exonerate Boeing. That would mean it wasn't a mechanical problem. This was either egregious pilot error of an all-time Guinness Book of World Records level, or even worse, maybe an act of terrorism, maybe an act of suicide. But that gives you an example of what I always say here on Real America's Voice. You got to look at the skin in the game, people who have money in the game. And if they're not worried about Boeing and this story, then there probably isn't much to worry about from a mechanical point of view.
Absolutely. Bottom line, skin in the game, investors. All right, let's talk about how these Trump tariffs may actually save a foreign car maker, maybe, that is Nissan. Talk about Nissan. They've got, some U.S. factories that, I guess, shall we say, aren't that busy because Nissan only has a few hot models like the Rogue. So I guess it's trying to save Honda from the tariff hell by offering to assemble Hondas at its factory in Canton, Mississippi. What's going on there?
Listen, David, I believe in love. And when Nissan and Honda were talking hot and heavy about merging, a full merger, a few months ago, I was so excited. I was buying gifts. I was going to get them an engagement gift. And then the whole thing ended up not happening. Basically, Honda said, Nissan, you're too fat, and I don't want to get married to you. I mean, I'm only slightly exaggerating. They said Nissan has too much bloat, and they didn't want to get together. But you know what? I still believe in love. And it turns out, because Nissan has only one or two really popular models, the Nissan Rogue is one of them. But some of their other factories, like the one in Canton, Mississippi, is not that busy. And so they told Honda, hey, you want to build some more of your larger vehicles here in the United States? We'll help you do that with our kind of idled factory, almost idled, and they're going to get a lot of jobs for the people in Canton, Mississippi. And we learned over the weekend, David, that if this does go through, the vehicle they will build there is the Honda Ridgeline pickup. And this will help Honda avoid all those tariffs because it'll be made in the USA. And it's great for Nissan because it gives them another business. Now, maybe not even just in the United States, but especially in the United States because of the tariffs, they'll be able to go to other automakers and say, hey, we've only got a couple of hot models of our own, and then we shut down these factories for 2-3 hours a day or whatever it is. Feel free to come in and build your stuff here for a small fee and maybe some flowers and wine. Nissan wants to be romanced, and they're going to get romanced.
Wow, I tell you what, news you can use, Jake. I mean, it's great stuff every single day, right about this time on American Sunrise. All right, Jake, appreciate it. Let's head back to you for the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
And there you see we're going to show you the opening bell right now from New York Stock Exchange. By the way, almost no one is actually on that floor anymore trading. It's all computers, but people go and they get this photo opportunity. Good for them. H&R Block, they're having a nice day clapping with the big mascot there who looks like an accountant with glasses. And we're expecting the markets, there's the bell, expecting the markets to open lower because of the new tariff announcements by President Trump. But boy, have the markets figured this out yet? They've just about figured out that it's not the end of the world every time he mentions a new tariff. So that you see, we're down, but fewer than 100 points on the Dow, which is nothing from a percentage point. You can see 0.1%. That's almost nothing. That's where we are. And look at crude oil. Also, not as high as it was earlier this morning, getting back from the $69 a barrel to the $68 a barrel level. So there we are on that. And by the way, for those of you, we're not going to show it on the screen, but for those of you who invest in Bitcoin, Bitcoin is up at the $121,000 level, another all-time high. And by the way, that is not unrelated to the stock market gains. A lot of people sell stocks to take the profit in stocks, and then they put the money in Bitcoin or they diversify it. So that's what's been going on. And again, there you see it. The Dow not even down 100 points yet. It might get there. But if this were a couple of months ago, you'd see the Dow down 500-600 points based on a new tariff warning or threat from President Trump. That's how these things go. The markets are figuring out. Look at that. The NASDAQ is up 10 points. That's the tech heavy. So there you go. All right. Since Trump was sworn in, it's incredible to think of the progress this administration has made with the economy. It's not easy to move mountains at the speed of light. However, when they are trying to right the country, they can't also help your personal finances. They can't do it directly. You have to do that. And that's why thousands of Americans are buying gold now from Birch Gold. Here are the facts. In the past 12 months, the value of gold has increased by 30%. Central banks are buying gold in record quantities, so demand doesn't seem to be subsiding. The Rio reset's still on the horizon, where BRICS nations are looking to unseat the U.S. dollar as the global reserve currency. But you can find peace of mind in gold. Birch Gold makes it extremely easy to convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Or you can even buy some to store in your home safe. Just text America to 989898 and Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, only useful information. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, take control of protecting your savings today. Text America to the number 989898. Okay, the on-again, off-again feud between Rosie O'Donnell and President Trump is on again in a big way. We'll share the details of what set them both off again this time as American Sunrise continues.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. G. Thanks for joining us this morning. Want y'all to hop on over in our conversation on Getter and Rumble. We have a lot of fun there. We debate all kinds of things and talk about all the topics we discuss here on the show. It is time now to take the political pulse of America. The Beat today, remembering that tragic day in Butler, Pennsylvania, just last year when an assassin's bullet almost took the life of President Trump and took the life of Corey Compatore. Fingers have been pointed, blame has been cast, but questions linger about the failures that led up to that event. What all happened? There is so much, and we want to know. We want to know what the motive was. We want to know who was behind it, and we have somebody we're going to ask about all of that right here. Mayor John David Longo of Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, was one of the speakers on stage that day, and he's here to share his testimony of what he witnessed before and after that assassination attempt and before Corey's life taken. Welcome to the show. Mayor, you couldn't have imagined, but did you feel something weird in the air that day? Because I always feel like I have a little bit of an instinct when moments that I know are going to affect the rest of my life are happening before they happen.
That's the million-dollar question, Doctor. A lot of folks have asked me and other rally goers, did you sense something? And the truth is, this rally was not unlike any other Trump rally that folks have been to. It was a joyous occasion. It was one meant for hope and for unity. There was camaraderie and patriotism galore all over this place, and everybody was looking forward to hearing the president. So very few of us could have ever imagined that something like this, so ugly, so horrible, could have found us right here in our backyard in Butler County.
Take us back to that day. Where were you? What did you see? How long before you knew that Corey was shot, that there were others shot, that President was okay, those kinds of things? What sticks out in your mind?
Well, the thing that sticks out in my mind the most, of course, is the calm that seemed to come over the crowd even during the attack, right? Maybe some of it was complacency or ignorance. Maybe folks didn't understand exactly what was happening. But even those who did continued to stand and keep their eyes locked on President Trump. Now, while we all felt a great sense of relief in seeing him rise from the stage, raising his fist in triumphant defiance to shout, "Fight, fight, fight," to reassure us that he was here with us, unfortunately, at that same time, we'd come to find that our hero firefighter, Corey Compatore, had lost his life. That was cut short by this maniac, and it was just so sad to see. But I have to say, the courage of the Compatore family in meeting this tragedy head on and keeping the memory of Corey and of that day alive is awe-inspiring.
Yeah, it still is befuddling to me that at least some people, and I didn't see any people, really jump and hide under a chair. I mean, normally when you hear gunshots, you just almost instinctually, right, jump under something. But instead, it seemed like everyone was standing up, looking around, watching to see what happened, trying to see if anyone else was hurt. It's really shocking human psychology, isn't it?
It certainly is, but truly, I have to say, Doctor, I think it's one of those things that you might only find at a place like a Trump rally. You have to understand that everybody who was there that day was there after 4 years of misery and horrible, horrible administrative governance under the Biden-Harris regime. So everyone was there and ready to take a stand. And so we were there to fight with President Trump. And so despite, again, this horrible tragedy and this attack, everybody there was locked in on President Trump to make sure that he was still there with us, because he was our champion. And it's amazing how the psychology worked out there. But I don't know that you would have seen such a thing transpire at an event like this had it not been for the solid patriotism and the love of country and of our leader that you would have seen at the Trump rally here today.
Are we ever going to know the motive and who was behind this, Mayor?
Well, I surely hope so, but I know one thing is for sure. Most of us on the ground, especially here in Butler County, are terribly unsatisfied with what we believe was a gross negligence and failure by the Biden-Harris regime and by extension the Biden-Harris Secret Service Administration. They had months to gather and deliver all sorts of intelligence and reconnaissance to us, the American people, and to President Trump. And I don't think that they left President Trump in a very good position moving into his administration, that he would have had some foundation to build upon in this. And so while I understand people are frustrated, they have to understand that there are still saboteurs and Biden-Harris holdouts within the Trump administration who are deliberately standing in the way of President Trump and Vice President Vance getting answers for the American people. So we're hopeful we'll see that very soon.
Yeah, well, I think we all can agree that we definitely have that same hope. And we appreciate you coming on the show today and telling us about it. Mayor John David Longo, thank God you were safe that day. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Doctor.
Absolutely. I want to turn our attention now back to our health and well-being. If you want to do your body a favor, head over to sacredhumanhealth.com and discover the incredible benefits of their grass-fed beef liver capsules. You guys, I am all about this. Grass-fed beef liver is one of the greatest concentrations of nutrients you can add to your diet. It plays a vital role in supporting your heart, your brain, your immune system, while boosting energy and improving your overall health. Sacred Human's beef liver capsules offer a natural alternative to synthetic multivitamins, providing nutrients in a form your body knows how to use efficiently. Many customers are thrilled with the noticeable boost in energy and vitality that they have experienced already. Visit sacredhumanhealth.com today. Use your code SUNRISE for 10% off of the price. Explore their full range of all natural supplements such as sleep supplements, collagen, immunity, and magnesium with vitamin D, which are all designed to help you on your path to optimal health. That's sacredhumanhealth.com, promo code SUNRISE for 10% off. For more, let's bring in the CEO of Sacred Human, Trevor Comstock. Trevor, thanks for being with us today. I love all this stuff. I'm telling you, I am religious about using all of this. The magnesium I use before bed, it makes all the difference in staying asleep or being able to go back to sleep right after you get up to, use the facilities or pet your puppy or whatever it is you're doing, or noise in the house. This has changed my life. And I will tell you, my energy level after consuming the organ meat, the liver, the powder from it, it makes it a lot easier. It's like St. Louis style pizza. It's a capsule, and you can take it like that rather than having to eat all of these foods constantly and having that monopolize your menu every single day. So these are just really gifts that we are discovering as we are in this MAGA generation. Tell us about the impetus.
Yeah, well said. I appreciate that. And thanks for having me. Well, I guess while I'm here, I'd love to just share a little background on us. But the real reason that we created Sacred Human was to offer health supplements that are clean, natural, and made with integrity. So when we launched about a year ago, our goal was really just to provide people with high quality and affordable products while also kind of breaking away from the big corporate mold that oftentimes prioritizes profit over health. So I've said it before, but unfortunately what we see throughout the industry, especially with the larger companies, is that they tend to cut corners and they'll advertise their products as healthy. But if you take a closer look, you'll find preservatives, artificial additives, food dyes, and just other unnatural ingredients that really aren't beneficial for your health. And then on top of that, many of these companies outsource their production overseas, oftentimes to China, where quality control can be pretty questionable. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, we just took the opposite route, and we always promise to produce everything right here in the USA. And we only use ingredients that we trust. So also, as you had mentioned, I just wanted to touch on our flagship product, which is our grass-fed beef liver. And what's amazing about this specific product is that it's one of the most nutrient-dense sources on the planet and packed with essential vitamins and minerals. So, for example, it's an incredible source of vitamin A, which is amazing for vision, skin health, as well as immune function. And then it also has B vitamins, which boosts energy and brain function. And then on top of that, it's also rich in iron, which makes it an excellent choice for preventing anemia. And it provides important trace minerals like zinc and copper, which support your metabolism. So in short, consuming beef liver regularly can actually help improve energy levels, enhance detoxification, and just promote overall vitality. So it's a pretty powerful product. And then on top of that, beef liver is also one of the most bioavailable sources of essential nutrients because it contains vitamins and minerals that the body can easily absorb and utilize, much more so than consuming like a greens powder or synthetic multivitamin, where oftentimes your body will just flush out a lot of those nutrients. So because your body is able to retain these vitamins and minerals much better, people also tend to experience a natural energy boost, which everyone seems to love and rave about. If you just go to our review section, and we get emails about it all the time. So
what I love is how you guys took the time to study for example, uptake enhancers. And for those of you, this is my thing. This is what I do all day as I study this stuff. I don't know when I became obsessed, but I am. And I want to say that, some of these things, they won't absorb, like you're talking about, unless you have maybe a certain vitamin. You took the time, your company took the time to figure out what those uptake enhancers are so that you can better absorb the natural nutrients that are in the products. This is key.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, you said it better than I could. It's an amazing product. And like I said, too, the other issue with just supplements in general, like if you go to your local Walgreens or if you're searching on Amazon, is that some products may be effective in their own right, but they still contain all that junk, like the artificial additives, food dyes, all the stuff that you hear RFK Jr. trying to eliminate from food, or that he's planning on eliminating from a lot of our foods in the U.S. You find the same ingredients within supplements. So it's pretty discousing.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think the source is also really important. Are you getting it from antibiotic stuffed, cows that are fed on GMOs and glyphosates and all the rest of it? Or are you getting it from Sacred Human, where everything is sourced from right here in the U.S. With healthy animals that live a great life? I think that makes a big difference as well. So everybody head on over to sacredhumanhealth.com. Use the promo code SUNRISE for 10% off. Trevor Comstock, thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for what you do. It's a mission field.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Call it the Clash of the Titans. There is no love lost between President Trump and not-so-funny woman Rosie O'Donnell, although I don't see her as a Titan. But in moments, why Trump says he's considering revoking her citizenship, reigniting their decade-long feud, which has now gone international. Those details just ahead as American Sunrise continues.
Let's spill some tea.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm American Sunrise early edition host Jake Novak, in for Terrance Bates this morning. Let's spill some tea. Sponsored by Artillery Tea Company, artilleryteacode.com. Use promo code RAV for 10% off your next order. Artillery Tea is all natural. It's whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. Artilleryteacode.com, promo code RAV for 10% off your first order. It is time now to spill some tea in the cup today. And not very funny woman, Rosie O'Donnell. She was once funny, but not so funny anymore. She's been feuding with President Trump for decades, saying nasty things about him on The View when she was on that show, on her own show. And the headline is now that, of course, Rosie O'Donnell's been living in Ireland for a while. And President Trump, this is all a joke, I think, has been saying, hey, if you like Ireland so much, maybe we should revoke your citizenship and you could stay in Ireland. Dr. G and David Brody joining me now. What do you guys think about this? I think this is yet another continuation of one of the better jokes in American political history.
Well, let me just say something real quick about the joke aspect to it, Jake, which is this. President Trump in that tweet said, this is the word, seriously looking in to this. I mean, why would you do that? Why would you say seriously? He can't do it. He can't revoke her status, number one. He can't do it. And if everybody's calling it a joke, why in the world would you say I'm seriously looking into it? I mean, President Trump's the funniest guy out there. I mean, he's got some great stuff, and the media takes him way too seriously all the time. We get what he's saying. But in this case, I didn't like the word serious. Like, don't say the word seriously looking into it if you're not really serious about it. And I can't imagine he's serious about it because he can't do it. Gina?
All right, well, I'm just going to make this point. We were recently in Ireland over the summer here and for our daughter's wedding. And I can tell you that Rosie O'Donnell should know. Just lost Jake. That Rosie O'Donnell should know. Now I don't know what's happening. Rosie O'Donnell should know that Conor McGregor also lives in Ireland, and some of my kids are friends with him. And I personally, I'd like to see that cage fight. Now, David, that would be serious.
That would be serious. I will say, though, I guess on a serious note, the Trump administration is looking into more of this denaturalized process. In other words, taking naturalized citizens and looking a little bit more into whether or not they can be deported if they've committed crimes before they were naturalized as U.S. citizens. So that's interesting. That definitely is happening.
Are you insinuating, David, that Rosie O'Donnell has committed crimes?
Well, it won't be me, but maybe President Trump is insinuating that because he said, I'm seriously Exactly. Maybe he does know something. It seems like he's always right at the end of when I say at the end of the day, everybody's like, hilarious. And then it's like, wait, Trump is right yet again. So who knows? Who knows?
We'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah. It will, yeah. But Rosie's always good for a laugh. And I mean a laugh at her, not with her.
Yeah.
That's a separate issue. All right. Up next on American Sunrise, a true hero emerges from the devastation at Camp Mystic. Details ahead. American Sunrise back in a moment, everybody.
American Sunrise. We've got Jake back, just like that. The magic of television. It's wondrous. I am Dr. Gina. Thanks so much for joining us today. Time now for our sunny side up. In the pan today, a true American hero. Here's the headline. U.S. Coast Guard rescue swimmer hailed as a hero after saving 165 children from Texas flooding. That hero, Scott Ruskin. Here's the story.
They sent us out. We kind of encountered some pretty serious weather, some of the worst flying we've ever dealt with personally. It took us, which should have been an hour flight, probably took us about 7 or 8 just to get into the landing zone. Once made about 4 different approaches trying to get in, we were able to get boots on the ground with the Air National Guard, Department of Public Safety for Texas, game wardens. And we decided to leave me on scene at Camp Mystic. That was kind of our main triage site we were trying to help out with. And we decided, hey, if we leave the rescue swimmer on scene, we'll have more space in our Dolphin MH-65. So based on that, I got on scene, boots on the ground at Camp Mystic. Kind of discovered I was the only person there as far as like first responders go. So yeah, I had about 200 kids mostly, all scared, terrified, cold, having probably the worst day of their life, and I just kind of need to triage them, get them to a higher level of care. Yeah, so the United States Army National Guard was landing their 60s with Task Force 1, some of their rescue swimmers, and they were able to land. We kind of came up with 2 different landing zones. There was one off an archery field and then one at a soccer field. So yeah, we were able to kind of land those 60s in there. And then I was kind of the main guy as far as like grabbing people, usually like 15 to 10 kids at a time, maybe one adult with them, and bringing them over to those 60s and getting them to a different LZ that was kind of safe and had more first responders than just myself out there. When I got on scene, there was 200 kids looking to someone for some sort of comfort and safety. They don't really know what my experience is or my rank or my age. They just know, hey, this guy's a professional and he's here to help us, and I kind of had to live up to that standard. But yeah, the real heroes, I think, were the kids on the ground. Like, those guys are heroic, and they were dealing with some of the worst times of their lives, and they were staying strong, and that helped inspire me to kind of get in there and help them out.
Scott is credited with saving 165 people after the floods. He sounds kind of casual, but you've got to imagine the faces that haunt him at night are the people he couldn't get to, David.
Yeah, for sure. But you know what? Thank God for people like Scott Ruskin, and wish the media would. I mean, the media does do some stories, has done stories about him, but I wish it would just be more consistent, Jake, that, we see a little bit more of the good news, and you've talked about this before, a little bit more of the good news out there rather than the death and destruction all the time.
Yeah, listen, folks, here's my secret sauce for doing good news on television, because some people have tried it to their credit, but they fail miserably because they think it means being a Pollyanna and just smiling. No, that's not how you do it. You remind people of the dramatically bad situation that the heroes have helped us get over. This isn't a hard one to do. You show people how scary the Texas floods were. You show people that desperation. And you say, when we come back, we're going to talk to someone who really made a difference and saved lives. You can do that with things like the environment. You can do things like things with water. You can do all kinds of things like that, as long as you give the sense of urgency. It can't just be, hi, we're going to be happy all the time. It's got, listen, we know you're scared about X. Here are some of the heroes. Here are some of the people who have either solved the problem or are on the way to solving the problem. That's how you cover good news. We just did it, and other people could do it too, although we're going to do it better.
Well, it's the story, Jake, that I think you're alluding to. Good only feels good because it contrasts with bad, right? Sleep only